This novel's story begins on the day the world is thrown into complete chaos. Without warning, towers and dungeons appear across the globe, unleashing monsters that throw humanity into total panic. The Korean peninsula is hit especially hard, becoming infamous for its endless waves of towers and dungeons. The monsters there are far stronger than anywhere else, turning the entire country into a living hell. But only in the deepest darkness can the brightest light emerge, as a bolt of lightning strikes the attacking monster. The mother and her child look on in relief as someone reaches out a helping hand. And the light of this novel is known as the heroes. With their strength, Korea begins pushing the monsters back, slowly bringing the towers and dungeons under control. Companies even turn the catastrophe into an economic opportunity, helping the nation recover. As time passes, South Korea rises alongside its heroes to become one of the world's greatest superpowers, attracting heroes from every corner of the globe. To fight the growing number of monsters and dungeons, it establishes the world's greatest hero academy, backed by unrivaled magic and magical engineering. Its name is Cube. Heroes from all over the world compete fiercely for the chance to enter Cube. And somewhere in this world exists the main character destined to save it, along with a rival who is fated to stand against him. So far, that was only an overview of this world, and I know all of it because this world wasn't created by a god. It was created by me, the author. But there's one problem. An announcer calls out the first-place cadet of the first year, Kim Suho. Right before the author's eyes, the very world he wrote begins unfolding into reality. The moment he sees Kim Suho's face, he's certain this is the novel he wrote. He tries to figure out how this even happened, but the crowd's non-stop praise for Kim Suho quickly overwhelms him. He realizes he can hear conversations from far away, while above the stadium someone praises this year's lineup of cadets as exceptional. Especially Kim Suho, who's only 17 years old. Kim Suho is also the main character of this novel, the one destined to lead this chaotic world, where either monsters or heroes will shape its future, guided by his kind and righteous heart. He also carries a special secret that he never reveals to anyone. The author then notices another cadet taking second place, a white-haired, golden-eyed guy named Shin Jong-hak. He's the fourth-generation heir of Jinsung Corporation and possesses talent capable of rivaling the main character, but in this novel, he's destined to become a villain. In the future, his growing inferiority complex toward Kim Suho will drive him down a dark path, making them oppose each other like light and shadow. Seeing the two of them standing there together, the author becomes even more convinced that this is truly the world of his novel. But then he begins questioning his own identity. If he's really inside his own novel, then he should have a name. Just then, someone taps his shoulder, tells him to stop spacing out, and calls him Chundong. But when he looks at the person's face, all he sees is a question mark. He asks if they were calling him, and the kid replies, "Of course. Who else here is named Kim Chundong?" Hearing that name leaves him stunned as he tries to remember whether he ever created someone called Kim Chundong. Since he can't remember anything, he tries looking at the boy's face, hoping it'll trigger a memory, but all he sees is another question mark. The sight both shocks and unsettles him. That's when he realizes he's become a character he never even wrote, a person with no defined appearance, an outdated name, and such a faint existence that nobody even pays attention to him because he doesn't have a face. Even inside Cube, he's the most ordinary of the ordinary, a character who'll never even cross paths with the main cast, a character who exists for no reason other than filling the audience seats. He is a novel's extra, nothing more than a speck of dust within its story. One day, he receives an email and wonders what it could possibly be about. It turns out to be a remake offer for his novel. We then learn that our MC had put his novel, The Returned Hero, on hold after falling into a writing slump for the past 6 months. He finds the sender strange for wanting a remake of a novel that's been on hiatus. He stares at the email for a moment before replying, feeling guilty for abandoning the novel and assuming it was just a request from a devoted fan. But that single reply became the cause of everything. Back in the present, our MC washes his face, finally starting to accept reality after 2 whole weeks. For those entire 2 weeks, he's been living with a face covered by a question mark, realizing this was never a dream. This world is the very novel he wrote, and Kim Chundong, the person he possessed, is nothing more than one of its countless extras. He tried every method he could think of to figure out who brought him here and why, but in the end, he found no answers. Which means he may have no choice but to remain in this world for now. And if this world follows the story he originally wrote, he'll be trapped here for nearly 10 years. The thought terrifies him, knowing he'd have to spend an entire decade surrounded by a bunch of teenagers. And the last thing he wants is to remain trapped inside an unfinished novel when he still has a life waiting for him back home. He calms himself and searches for a way back, concluding that his only option for now is to follow the main story until the point where he stopped writing. So for now, he decides to simply endure life inside the world of his own novel. And to do that, he'll have to attend Cube. It's a man-made island near the East Sea, home to nearly 50,000 people, including the future hero cadets. A modern city filled with the world's greatest magical talent and engineering, whose existence is one of the reasons Korea became a global superpower. It's the heart of the nation, and more importantly, the main stage of his novel. We then see him arriving at Cube's massive hero training center. Out of everyone training to become heroes using their unique abilities, known as gifts, only the absolute elite earn the right to become Cube cadets. The body he possesses is also a Cube cadet, though he has no idea what gift it has, only assuming it's decent enough since it got him accepted. Whatever that gift may be, he just hopes it'll help him survive this terrifying school. He enters his classroom, Class Veritas, the center of the Cube arc. The heroes and villains, the supporters and rivals, and even the main protagonist of the story, they're all gathered here. Before long, these characters will begin forming cliques that eventually shape countless future events. And knowing he'll have to spend the next 10 years with them, things already aren't looking good for him. Fast forward to the evening, as he walks back toward his dormitory without even realizing how the day passed. While thinking back on his first day of school, he suddenly stops after noticing something. It's a package addressed to him, and he quickly begins opening it. Assuming it's Kim Chuendong's personal belongings, he's left speechless when he sees what's inside. It's his laptop from the real world. Completely stunned, he wonders how it ended up here as the laptop suddenly powers on. It begins initializing synchronization, and a bright flash of light bursts from the screen. It's synchronizing Kim Chuendong's character with Kim Hajin while downloading all of his settings. He immediately realizes these are the very settings he wrote himself. He reaches toward the screen, wondering who's behind all of this, when a strange overlap begins forming over his body. The synchronization reaches 99%, and the question mark covering his face begins to crack. The laptop then announces that he's acquired a unique authority called Setting Intervention. The glass-like layer hiding his face starts to shatter. Moments later, it completely breaks apart, finally revealing our MC's real face. And as the synchronization reaches 100%, all of his stats are completely reset. He stares at his laptop screen, only to find his real face staring back at him. As the notifications appear around him, he wonders what's happening, questioning if this is enlightenment. In this world, enlightenment is an awakening that occurs when someone surpasses their limits. Once awakened, all of your skills, gifts, and abilities become digitized, allowing you to view them while growing stronger far more efficiently. In simple terms, it's basically a status window. He begins reading each notification one by one, with synchronization and reset immediately catching his attention. Though he doesn't fully understand them, he knows synchronization restored his face, and while he's much weaker than Chundong was, he received points in return. The next thing that grabs his attention is an ability called Setting Intervention. Hajin is certain he never wrote an ability like that, leaving him wondering what gaining more importance is supposed to mean. Then it suddenly clicks. Maybe it means he has to become an important figure within this novel, which would explain why he was given this laptop and this mysterious ability, because he's expected to interfere with the main story. Just as he's about to dismiss the whole thing as nonsense, another notification appears, mentioning some undisclosed information. He clicks his tongue in frustration, realizing that if he wants any clue to return home, he'll have to obey and interfere with the story. He calms himself and sits down, knowing that even if he did nothing and simply waited for the novel to end, there was no guarantee he'd ever return. And even if this undisclosed information isn't the clue he wants, getting involved with the main cast might eventually lead him to one. But if he plans on doing that, he'll first need enough strength to survive the main story. In his novel, leveling up doesn't exist, and stats can't be increased freely, making points an incredibly valuable resource. To get the most value out of them, he decides to invest in luck. Luck affects far more than dungeon rewards, influencing wealth, bonus stats, relationships, and countless other things throughout everyday life. Since fixed stats like luck normally can't be raised with points, he wonders if converting them into SP might bypass that restriction. Deciding it's worth the risk, he converts them into SP and invests everything into luck. The moment he does, a notification appears, stating that a mysterious luck effect has been activated. That effect immediately applies to his luck itself, increasing it by 0.1%. Considering even the protagonist Kim Suho only has around 9.0 magic power, Hajin realizes he may have just pulled off something incredible. He then spends the rest of his SP on perseverance, knowing he'll need it to survive the upcoming boot camp. Thanks to his high luck, his perseverance also receives a bonus increase. Suddenly, a warning appears, stating that fixed stats can no longer be modified with SP. Hajin grumbles that it's surprisingly petty, but he expected there'd be limits to exploiting the system, and he's grateful he at least boosted luck and perseverance. He then remembers he still has another 10,000 SP from the novice bonus. He starts considering where he should spend those points as well. But in the end, he decides to hold on to them until he's thought it through more carefully. Back in the classroom, the professor congratulates everyone on completing their morning training before introducing himself. He introduces himself as Kim Suhyuk, the instructor who'll be in charge of them for the next year. Hajin immediately checks his stats. Ranking points, 3,850. World rank, 9,737. Upper intermediate grade 5 according to the association's classification. Professor Suhyuk gets straight to the point, warning them that Cube isn't nearly as easy as they think, because grades determine everything, and statistically, fewer than half of its cadets graduate with a contract. Since Cube exists to train heroes, every student will be judged under an extremely strict and precise evaluation system. He then tells everyone to follow him, as it's time to choose their primary weapon. He places his hand on a sealed lock, causing a massive gate to slowly open. Beyond it lies a huge armory filled with every kind of weapon imaginable. As the students stand frozen in awe, the professor shouts at them to hurry up and choose their weapon. Once selected, that weapon can't be changed for the next 6 months, so they need to choose carefully. One after another, the students begin picking weapons like bows, rapiers, and many others. Hajin watches the main characters choose theirs without hesitation before realizing it's finally his turn. Since his current stats aren't high enough to properly wield the weapons most cadets use, he has to choose carefully. Raising his stats just to use those weapons now would ruin the efficiency of his investments, so his options are limited by several conditions. The moment he makes his choice, another student notices what he picked. Everyone immediately starts questioning whether he's actually serious, and even the professor looks shocked. He looks at Hajin and asks if that's really the weapon he's choosing. Everyone turns to stare at Hajin, and the professor recalls that he used a sword back at the military academy. Hajin simply replies that he's decided to switch. The professor accepts his answer, reminding everyone that Cube leaves every decision to its cadets. Whether that decision is right or wrong, the cadet alone must bear the consequences. Even after hearing that, Hajin doesn't waver in the slightest. He can already hear the other students mocking him for choosing that weapon. But Hajin knows that even in this world, it's still an excellent weapon, especially for those who can't properly use magic. The bullets used here are called magic bullets because they're infused with mana, making them far stronger than ordinary metal rounds. Even with those advantages, people still avoid guns because they have obvious limitations. The first reason is that no matter how strong the user becomes, a gun's damage has a fixed ceiling. The second is that firearms have shallow origins and very little history behind them. This world is built upon legends and mythology. The legendary weapons from those myths actually exist, and the deeper their origins, the higher their grade becomes. That's why cadets favor ancient weapons over modern firearms, trusting their own skills while relying on legendary armaments to push beyond their limits. But Hajin knows none of that really matters to him. He doesn't see himself as some chosen protagonist, and he's never even wielded a sword, so he'd never compete with the other cadets that way. For him, choosing a gun is the smarter option, since he can use it immediately while also earning SP simply by standing out. With his weapon decided, it's finally time to receive his gift. A gift is essentially this world's version of a superpower, and while most people only awaken one, there are a few rare exceptions. One of those exceptions is Kim Suho, whose Sword Saint gift has already fully manifested. Spotting Naeun, Suho asks if she's here to train too. She replies, "Why else would I be here?" Though Suho explains he only asked because hardly anyone trains after class. Seeing her also reminds Suho that their class has another sharpshooter, and the moment Hajin is mentioned, Naeun visibly gets annoyed, making Suho ask why she's reacting like that. She says she can't even call Hajin a real sharpshooter since he can barely hit targets a kilometer away, assuming he's already given up on becoming a hero and is only delaying his inevitable dropout. Hearing that, Suho tells her she shouldn't judge someone so easily. Naeun looks confused, while Suho simply stands there with his usual gentle smile. She snaps at him to stop lecturing her, and after Suho apologizes, she tells him to leave if he isn't here to train. Outside, Hajin overhears part of their conversation and wonders if they were talking about him. Later that night, he sits in front of his laptop, realizing that if Kim Suho became the world's greatest hero with just one gift, then gifts must be incredibly important, making the 10,000 SP reward from creating one impossible to ignore. He starts by writing a simple gift, consuming all 10,000 SP. To his surprise, the gift automatically edits and refines itself. It's compatible with every ranged weapon, not just firearms, but bows as well. It's also a growth-type gift, weak at first but capable of becoming much stronger over time, so he decides it's the perfect choice. With that settled, Hajin finally feels prepared to survive until the end of the main story. The next day in class, the teacher begins explaining the towers and dungeons. Hajin can't help thinking that the few careless lines he once scribbled down had somehow become official textbook material, and while everyone else studies seriously, he effortlessly follows along thanks to his observation and reading gift. Just as its name suggests, observation lets him analyze everyone within his field of vision, while reading allows him to view the novel's chronological settings directly through his laptop. Naeun quietly listens throughout the lecture until the teacher finally wraps things up. The moment class ends, she complains about being stuck with theory instead of getting any real combat training. Suddenly, another student enters and tells everyone to report to the plaza in 20 minutes. Hearing that instantly gets Naeun excited, unlike some of the others. The student explains it's for practical training, which only makes Hajin sigh. Since everyone already knows what today's lesson will cover, the professor skips ahead and announces the teams, for members each, consisting of 2 warriors, 1 sharpshooter, and 1 supporter. Unless special circumstances arise, these teams will stay together until the midterm exam, and they've been balanced with both high and low-ranking cadets before everyone is told to find their teammates. The moment Hajin sees who's on his team, he's left completely speechless, unable to believe he'd end up with that person. Hajin soon realizes he's been placed on the same team as Yuyona. Just like in the novel, countless major characters exist to interact and clash with the protagonist, driving the story forward. But among all of them, Yuyona holds a particularly important role. She's the leading candidate to inherit Korea's top guild, Essence of the Strait, as well as the prestigious Yu family. During the first half of the novel, she constantly clashes with Kim Suho, but eventually comes to admire him and becomes one of his strongest supporters, which makes getting close to Yuyona extremely valuable, since becoming more involved in the story also means earning more SP. So Hajin decides he'll do whatever it takes to leave an impression on her during today's training. The rest of the team introduces themselves to Yona, Jin Hozung, and Hazuki. Internally, Yona debates how she should respond before politely greeting them in an overly formal tone, making everyone feel awkward despite being the same age. Looking around for the final teammate, she spots Hajin as he introduces himself. She asks him to introduce himself properly, while Hajin remembers that she dislikes people who lack confidence. Before he can answer, the others crowd around him, asking about the weapon he chose and telling him he's already famous among the first years for picking it, until the professor suddenly appears behind them, asking if they're really that free to be chatting. The group immediately stiffens as the professor informs them that their target's coordinates have been sent to their smartwatches and orders every team to move out. Hajin's team soon arrives at a beach and sprints toward the shoreline. Yona tells everyone to stay alert because they're almost at the target. While discussing the monster's information, Hajin struggles to keep up from behind, already running out of breath. Even though his stamina is supposedly above average, all he can manage is barely keeping pace with the others, leaving him to wonder if this is simply the standard for cube cadets. They finally come to a stop as Yona announces they've arrived. They're now inside the training zone of the 8th Coast. Their target is the black hump octopus. The moment it appears, Yona immediately begins explaining the strategy. The black hump octopus is only a low intermediate grade monster, and while the main body isn't especially dangerous, the humps on its head are the real threat. Whenever it senses danger, it launches dozens of blood-sucking baby octopuses from those humps, each one capable of turning an ordinary human into a mummy within seconds. Hozung points out that eliminating the swarm should be their top priority, and since dozens appear at once, Hazuki suggests leaving that role to Hajin, their sharpshooter. But Yona refuses, saying she'll deal with them herself, while ordering the warriors to conserve their magic power so they can finish the black hump octopus in a single strike before its regeneration kicks in. Hajin is caught off guard, wondering if she's intentionally trying to leave him out of the mission. Yona starts moving while asking if everyone is ready. Without even waiting for Hajin's response, she gives the order to begin the operation, which only irritates him. The black hump octopus suddenly smashes their boat to pieces. Meanwhile, Hozung remains on shore, trying to draw the monster's attention toward himself. Their first objective is to lure it all the way onto land. The octopus notices him, dives beneath the water, and charges straight at him. The instant it bursts back to the surface, Hozung takes off running. At the same time, Hazuki and Hajin prepare to attack. And finally, Yona steps forward, wielding her signature weapon, a whip. The black hump octopus lashes out with the humps on its head, unleashing a swarm of baby octopuses. Hozung breaks into a cold sweat, realizing they've already started pouring out. The entire swarm rushes straight toward him as he desperately tries to escape. Suddenly, Yona steps in and wipes out the baby octopuses before they can reach him. Witnessing the strength of Cube's 7th-ranked cadet, Yona leaves Hozung completely stunned. He hurriedly thanks her before retreating, leaving Yona to hold the front line alone. As Yona swings her whip again, the enraged octopus immediately retaliates. She effortlessly dodges and leaps into the air, only to be ambushed midair by a baby octopus. Hazuki yells for her to watch out, but by the time she notices, the monster is already within striking distance. At that very moment, Hajin fires a shot and saves Yona. She turns in surprise, only to realize the one who rescued her was none other than Kim Hajin. SP can be exchanged for stat points, and the more important Hajin becomes, the more SP he earns. But as nothing more than an extra, drawing attention isn't easy, which leaves him with only one option: interfering with the stories of the main characters. Just like he did by saving Yona, leaving the rest of his teammates equally stunned. Yona starts scolding him for ignoring her order to stay back, but she's interrupted as the octopus launches another attack. Another massive wave of baby octopuses comes swarming toward them, making even Yona tense up. Hajin calmly analyzes the battlefield, estimating there are only a few dozen, and thanks to their low intelligence, he can easily predict every attack route. Which means this is the moment where he can make the biggest impact. He immediately activates his gift, Bullet Time. It's the very gift he created himself, allowing him to slow time for 3 seconds. For those 3 seconds, every movement around him becomes perfectly clear. And after that, all that's left is pulling the trigger. As the countdown rapidly ticks away, Hajin keeps firing shot after shot without missing. When the 3 seconds finally end, Yona turns around in disbelief to find every single baby octopus already dead. She freezes for a moment before noticing the octopus's exposed hump. Wasting no time, she wraps it with her whip and orders everyone to attack. Hazuki and Hozung immediately charge in, activating Magic Liberation. While Hajin covers Yona from behind, both Hazuki and Hozung land a devastating strike on the octopus. The massive monster finally collapses, prompting Hajin to ask if it's finally over. Yona silently shoots him a glare while Hajin drops onto the ground, claiming he's completely exhausted. Moments later, their clear time is recorded at 58 minutes and 58 seconds, placing the team in 16th place. Seeing her team's ranking, Yona can't hide her disappointment. Their entire battle was recorded by drones, and the footage is automatically sent to their smartwatches for later analysis. Sometime later, she's still frustrated with the result, even though she knows everyone will also receive individual evaluations. What bothers her even more is seeing Chai Nayun rank 4th out of 100, placing well above her. As she glances toward Shin, she recalls wanting to outshine Nayun's family from the very beginning. But with a result like this, she can't even imagine winning. She then notices Shin staring at Nayun with a faint smile. The sight instantly irritates her, causing her to slam her desk. She gets up and walks straight toward Nayun. But instead of confronting her, she suddenly hugs her from behind with an excited smile, completely changing her attitude. She asks about Nayun's battle, and Nayun casually replies that her team only managed 4th place before asking how Yona's team did, making Yona reluctantly admit they finished 16th. Nayun is surprised to hear that, saying that with a gunman on the team, they were probably dragged down, while pointing directly at Hajin. But Yona sees it differently, believing that although Hajin slowed them down during the 50-minute trip that should have taken only 10, he more than made up for it during the actual fight. After all, he wiped out dozens of baby octopuses before they could even touch the ground, making her question whether ordinary magic bullets could ever accomplish that. The more she thinks about it, the more curious she becomes about who Kim Hajin really is. Meanwhile, Hajin heads to the training room and checks how much his status has improved. Several of his stats have increased, with luck standing out the most. Just as he'd expected, his luck had a huge impact during today's training. and the SP he earned made getting involved with Yona more than worth it. His physical stats also improved noticeably through training, leaving him convinced it's all thanks to enlightenment and his boosted luck. Satisfied with today's progress, he decides to head back after finishing his workout. Later that night, inside Yona's dorm room, she's carefully reviewing footage of the training session, paying particular attention to Hajin. She notices that in just 2.78 seconds, he fired 60 shots, making her wonder if it was even physically possible to pull the trigger 20 times per second, or if his gun somehow had an automatic firing mechanism. His reflexes are undeniably exceptional, yet his physical stats are strangely low compared to the other cadets, and considering he suddenly switched weapons after entering Cube, there are simply too many things that don't add up, especially since she doesn't even remember seeing him at Agent Military Academy. Just then, she receives a message from Shin asking what she's doing. She blushes and smiles before replying that she's analyzing today's battle footage, making Shin assume she's obsessing over something again. She teases him by saying that if he's serious about inheriting the guild, he should start analyzing people too. Shin replies that everyone on her team was probably trash, before suddenly asking about Hajin. Yona smiles to herself, thinking that despite pretending not to care, Shin ended up getting curious anyway, finding that side of him strangely cute. She tells him Hajin seemed capable enough to pull his own weight, fitting someone ranked 934, while Shin simply brushes it off, saying he probably just got lucky. Hearing that, Yona quietly repeats to herself, he just got lucky, unable to fully believe it. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of Creator's Sacred Grace, an employee reminds the vice captain that the guild's observation schedule was supposed to begin 2 Fridays ago, but she barely listens and excitedly tells him to look at something instead. She's watching footage of Kim Suho, praising how incredible he is. She is Yoon Sunga, vice captain of Creator's Sacred Grace and the world's rank 307 hero. Watching his movements, she describes them as flowing like water, with swordsmanship unlike anything she's ever seen, almost as if he were dancing. Combined with his overwhelming cutting power, it looks as though he's slicing through both the monsters and space itself. Essence of the straight, desolate moon, Frost Sanctuary, she completely understands why every top guild in Seoul wants to recruit him. She excitedly declares that she'll bring Kim Suho into her guild no matter what. She then switches to the next cadet's footage, Kim Hajin, and immediately notices something unusual. She's visibly surprised to see the weapon he's using. Her assistant explains that Hajin briefly became a hot topic in guild communities, and since he was on Yona's team, plenty of people have already watched the footage. Using a non-automatic firearm, he fired 60 shots in 3 seconds, landing 59 direct hits, even though the weapon itself shouldn't have been capable of keeping up with that speed. Because of the extraordinary talent Hajin displayed with such an unconventional weapon, people within the guild have started calling him unorthodox. He also switched from using a sword to a firearm the moment he entered Cube, leading Sunga to conclude that he experienced enlightenment. Enlightenment is the phenomenon where someone finally discovers their true talent, since no one knows what they're truly suited for before awakening. That's why there are rare cases where people completely change weapons after awakening, though doing so usually sets their careers back by at least 3 years, which is why Agent Military Academy encourages cadets to train with many different weapons. The fact that Hajin awakened at only 17 is impressively early. Even if his talent seems limited to firearms for now, she decides he's still worth keeping an eye on, but when she asks if any scouts are available, her assistant tells her they're all busy because of their current recruitment target. So she decides to leave Hajin alone for now, believing that if he's truly a hidden gem, he'll eventually shine on his own, and only then will they know whether the title of unorthodox truly suits him. And before long, they will find out. By Wednesday, it's time for anti-personnel training, where Kim Suho is matched against another cadet. Today's lesson is anti-personnel training. The exercise is held in pairs, with every cadet using training weapons to make judging easier while reducing the risk of injury. Just then, someone angrily calls out Hajin's name. It's the instructor, while Hajin complains that he's somehow the only one being forced to fight an instructor instead of another student. She explains that firearm training hasn't been completed yet, and since using a real gun during anti-personnel training could cause serious injuries, she'll be his opponent instead. Hearing that, Hajin immediately starts whining that he can't do this anymore and tries to surrender. Clenching her fist, she reminds him that there are no surrenders in real combat before ordering him to raise his guard. The moment she throws a punch, Hajin barely manages to dodge it. The instructor is clearly surprised, while Hajin himself looks just as nervous. Without wasting a second, she throws another punch, but Hajin narrowly avoids it again by leaning backward. That's when she notices that despite his terrible stance, he's still following every single one of her attacks with his eyes. That's the effect of thousand-mile eyes, a skill that lets him see farther while vaguely predicting an opponent's movements. Even so, the skill only lets him see the attacks coming. He still has to dodge them himself. Watching him awkwardly hop around, the other students can't help but laugh and mock him. Strangely enough, as Hajin notices everyone laughing at him, his SP increases, making him wonder if embarrassing himself is actually more efficient. After the training finally ends, Hajin grabs himself a can of soda. As he turns around, he notices Yona walking past him. She silently shoots him a look of complete disgust. Watching her walk away, Hajin can't help but think that even though he created her himself, her personality is still just as troublesome. Then an idea suddenly pops into his head. He calls out to her before tossing over a can of cola. Yona immediately asks if he's trying to pick a fight, but Hajin explains that she carried the team during their last mission, so this is simply his way of thanking her and hoping they can get along. In reality, it's just another experiment. If interacting with extras earned him 40 SP, then how much would talking to someone from the main cast be worth? Yona coldly refuses, telling him to drink it himself before tossing the can right back. She also warns him not to speak so casually to her again without permission, calling it his first warning. Hajin simply watches her leave without saying another word. But as Yona continues walking, something suddenly feels off about her bag. Opening it, she finds the same can of cola she had thrown back, instantly making her call Hajin an idiot. She angrily raises the can, ready to throw it into the trash. But after hesitating for a moment, she quietly puts it back into her bag, muttering that the cola did nothing wrong. Watching everything unfold from above, Hajin explains that according to her character settings, Yona secretly loves junk food like cola, ramen, and hamburgers, but because of her reputation, she could never buy them herself. Even after exploiting a hidden character setting that no one else knows about, Hajin realizes a brief interaction like this doesn't earn much SP, meaning he'll have to force himself into the main story instead. Thinking ahead, he remembers exactly which major event is about to begin. The Jin attack on the National Weapon Museum. Jin are humans who have formed contracts with devils. After trading away their souls for immense power, they become servants carrying out the devil's will, and this particular incident is an assassination attempt targeting someone at the National Weapon Museum. In the original story, the main cast just happens to be visiting the museum and foils the Jin's plan, allowing Kim Suho to catch the attention of several important characters. Since it's still early in the story, both Kim Suho and Chai Nayun are present, and the Jin isn't powerful enough to pose an overwhelming threat, which means Hajin has the perfect opportunity to insert himself into the event. As he's thinking of a way to get into the museum, a teacher catches him standing around and asks why he hasn't returned to the dorms after class, forcing Hajin to put away his laptop and leave. But just then, his laptop suddenly begins acting strangely, and a mysterious email appears on the screen. At Cube, clubs serve as extracurricular activities where cadets gather to pursue interests outside of class. From martial arts and academics to hobbies and hands-on experiences, Cube offers over 100 unique clubs. More than just a place for self-improvement, these clubs also give cadets the chance to build relationships with one another. And the club Hajin is about to join is one of them. Welcoming everyone, the president of the travel club, Healing Rain, Oh Hyun, thanks the new members for joining. He happily points out that this year's recruits include quite a few impressive cadets. In fact, when he first received their applications, he could hardly believe they were real. He then introduces the purpose of Healing Rain, explaining that it's a club dedicated to relaxation, using Cube's portals once or twice a month to travel outside the island. For today's orientation, they'll be visiting somewhere nearby. Their destination is Seoul. A simple group trip to Seoul in pairs, exactly as Hajin had written in his novel. But Hajin's real objective is the beginning of the first major arc, the National Weapon Museum. Once he's there alongside the main cast, he plans to subtly interfere with the story. The club president tells everyone to draw lots for their partners, making Hajin wonder if that's how it happened in the original novel. Either way, he already plans to split off on his own. But when Yona draws her lot, she ends up paired with Kim Hajin, leaving both of them staring at each other in disbelief. Without hesitation, she asks if they can move separately. Hajin agrees immediately, but just as she's about to leave, she suddenly stops to tell him one last thing. She warns him not to speak casually to her again, calling it his second and final warning. Before long, they arrive at the National Weapon Museum, home to Korea's largest collection of replica weapons. While wandering through the exhibits, Hajin notices Chai Nayun practically drooling over a bow. Seeing her there reminds him that Kim Suho should be somewhere nearby as well. He approaches Suho and asks if he's looking at the seven-branch sword. Suho says yes, and Hajin introduces himself. Suho admits he couldn't remember Hajin's name, only recognizing him because of his unusual choice of weapon. Hajin recalls that Suho is strong, handsome, and overwhelmingly righteous, to the point where readers criticized him for being too unrealistic as a protagonist. Suho then asks if Hajin wants to check out the firearm exhibition together, but Hajin tells him they won't have time for that. Almost on cue, the entire building suddenly begins to shake as the emergency alarm blares throughout the museum. An announcement warns everyone that monsters have appeared outside, and panic immediately spreads across the visitors' faces. Chaos erupts as everyone desperately rushes toward the exits. In the middle of the panic, Nayun suddenly smashes the display case protecting the bow. The unexpected move leaves everyone stunned and nervous. She quickly tells everyone to stay calm, explaining that the museum station hero will arrive soon. She warns that anyone who goes outside now will only become monster food, and the moment she takes the bow, alarms begin blaring for a broken display case and stolen artifact. That immediately triggers the emergency security system, sealing the entire museum shut. Nayun tells Suho to hurry and grab a weapon because they'll have to protect everyone until the hero arrives. Just then, she notices someone approaching. The mysterious figure radiates a dark crimson aura, prompting Nayun to ready her weapon. It's the Jinn, who realizes there are already people trapped inside. Hajin immediately recognizes him as the demonic human known as the Dog of Lucius, a villain meant to become the foundation of Kim Suho's growth. The Jinn extends his claws before charging straight at Nayun. Just as he's about to strike, Suho attacks him from behind. Hajin calmly watches, convinced that just like in the original story, Kim Suho will defeat him with ease. But instead, the exact opposite happens as the Jinn sends Suho crashing into a wall with a single blow. Watching Suho collapse, Hajin is left completely stunned, unable to process what just happened. Hajin immediately realizes something is wrong, because this isn't how the story he wrote was supposed to unfold. Originally, the heroes were only meant to be pushed back at first before Kim Suho revealed his true strength and completely turned the battle around. But instead, Nayun can only call out to him with a trembling voice. Suho is lying on the ground, coughing up blood, and when Hajin asks if he's all right, he can't even get back on his feet. Realizing Suho is in terrible condition and needs time to recover, Hajin watches as the Jinn closes in to attack once again. Seeing that, Nayun immediately fires a volley of arrows at him. But even after taking every hit, the Jinn simply smiles, and no matter how many more arrows she fires, nothing changes. Watching her attacks accomplish nothing, Nayun begins to panic, realizing this isn't some healing ability or special skill. The Jinn is simply enduring every single shot through sheer willpower alone. A sinister grin spreads across his face, and the moment Hajin realizes what's coming, he tries warning Nayun as the Jinn suddenly charges straight toward her. Just as those razor-sharp claws are about to reach her, Suho rushes in and kicks the Jinn away. He quickly asks if she's all right, and she immediately asks him the same question. Before either of them can recover, the Jinn lashes out with long energy whips, blocking Suho's counterattack in the process. Suho immediately notices that the Jinn's body has changed form. He tries holding the monster back, but the Jinn completely overpowers him before smashing him into the ground. As Suho struggles beneath the attack, Nayun seizes the chance to strike the Jinn from behind. The Jinn slowly turns toward her, his face filled with rage. Then, without warning, energy whips burst from his back and lash out at her. She has no time to react before being slammed straight into the wall behind her. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, Hajin realizes that if this continues, someone is going to die, so he shouts for everyone to get back. Even though he's the one who wrote this novel, he can't understand why the events are unfolding so differently. Taking a deep breath, he pulls out his laptop along with a single bullet from his magazine, determined to do whatever he can. He knows ordinary bullets can't even scratch the Jinn, and no matter how much he increases their destructive power, dealing a fatal blow would still be impossible. But as long as they're still inside the world of his novel, then the fundamental settings themselves shouldn't have changed. With that in mind, he opens the settings for mana bullets. Spending 104 SP, he changes both the bullet's destructive power and its attribute before saving the new settings. After all, the reason this world needs so many different heroes is because attributes and elemental compatibility can overcome differences in strength and allow someone far weaker to deal devastating damage. Knowing the Jin possesses the dark attribute, Hajin raises his gun and takes aim. While keeping the sights locked on the Jin, he shouts for Kim Suho to move, knowing that darkness has one natural weakness: light. The instant Suho gets out of the way, Hajin pulls the trigger, firing a mana bullet that has now been transformed into pure light. The glowing bullet slams directly into the Jin's shoulder, erupting into a blinding explosion of light. The light bullet tears through the Jin's arm, blowing it clean off and making him scream in agony. His grip on Nahyun instantly loosens, sending her collapsing to the ground. With the opening Hajin created, Suho's magic power finally begins surging, while Hajin drops to one knee, knowing he's bought them enough time. Brilliant mana engulfs both Suho and the sword in his hand. The overwhelming aura immediately makes the Jin panic, because the Sword Saint's power is capable of cutting through anything. Without hesitation, Suho unleashes a devastating slash that cuts the Jin clean in half. Letting out one final scream, the Jin collapses to the ground, bringing the battle to an end. As the dust settles, both Suho and Nahyun are left panting heavily from exhaustion. Suho walks over and reaches out to check if Nahyun is alright, but she immediately slaps his hand away. He silently stares at her, while Hajin tells him to leave her alone, certain that her brother will come comfort her, just like he wrote in the novel. But instead of understanding, both of them stare at Hajin in complete shock and disbelief. Confused, Nahyun asks what he just said, before suddenly doubling over and vomiting. Outside the museum, several monsters continue rampaging until beams of light rain down from the sky and pierce straight through them. The one behind the attack is none other than Yoon Sunga, who wipes them all out with ease. One of the paramedics informs her that the situation outside the museum has already been resolved. Relieved, she immediately asks about what happened inside. He explains that a Jin appeared but was quickly defeated, and that 3 cube cadets just happened to be inside. Curious, she asks for their names. The paramedic starts listing them: Chai Nahyun, Kim Suho, and before he can even mention the third, she excitedly runs off. After all, this is the perfect chance to finally meet Kim Suho in person. On her way there, she unexpectedly runs into Hajin, calling it perfect timing. Without hesitation, she walks right up and greets him. Before she can even ask where Kim Suho is, Hajin casually tells her that he's still inside. Just as she's about to leave, something suddenly clicks in her mind. Somehow, Hajin already knew she was looking for Kim Suho. Meanwhile, outside the museum, Hajin opens his laptop, still unsettled by Yoon Sunga's sudden appearance and wondering if it's connected to the story changing. He first tries organizing his thoughts, concluding that Kim Hajin is a foreign variable who entered the story, but whose importance should still be insignificant. Since everything had followed the original plot until now, he assumed he wasn't important enough to influence the story. Then, a forgotten detail suddenly hits him. Something he had completely overlooked. His novel had a co-author, and this world is based on the remake version. If the person who sent that email continued writing the story, then it makes perfect sense that completely new events would begin appearing. And if that's really the case, then every prediction he made based on the original novel could already be worthless. Just then, the screen of his laptop suddenly lights up. A new message appears with the title, One Flaw. It reads that the protagonist and the characters around him never truly face danger. If that continues, readers will eventually grow tired of such repetitive and predictable storytelling. Therefore, starting from this point onward, enemy levels will be increased, even if it throws the entire story into chaos, leaving Hajin completely stunned. By evening, the instructor calls Hajin over, saying he's already heard the general details of what happened and will ask for the full story later. But for now, everyone can head back. Suho asks about Nahyun, and the instructor explains that she's feeling unwell and has already gone home with her family, so they should leave as well. As the instructor walks away, Suho stops Hajin. He asks why Hajin said something like that to Nahyun back at the museum. Confused, Hajin asks what he means, and Suho reminds him about what he said regarding her brother. Just as Hajin is about to mention Nahyun's brother again, another email suddenly appears on his laptop, a point of criticism. He immediately changes his response and instead asks who Nahyun's brother is. Suho wonders if he's pretending not to know, but Hajin insists he's serious, leaving Suho annoyed enough to end the conversation for now. Later that night, Hajin searches through everything related to Nahyun on his laptop, including her relationships and personal information, but everything still appears exactly as he originally wrote it. Then one particular news article catches his attention. It reports that Nahyun's brother fell into a coma during Operation Fire Spark. The revelation leaves Hajin completely stunned as he wonders what this is supposed to mean. In the original story, Operation Fire Spark was the mission where Chai Jin-yoon, The main character's trusted assistant, first earned his reputation, while 13-year-old Nayun looked up to him with pride after he became a hero. At least, that's how Hajin originally wrote it. Then another message suddenly appears. It informs him that further information will only be revealed after he recognizes the modified settings. Originally, Chai Jin-yoon was written as Nayun's dependable older brother and Kim Suho's loyal assistant. But instead, Hajin is shown a horrifying scene of Jin-yoon lying in a pool of blood, followed by a notice explaining that the protagonist had too many allies, so his settings were rewritten. The revised setting states that 4 years ago, shortly after becoming a hero, Chai Jin-yoon was involved in an accident, received the demon's brand, and became a demon seed. Seeing such a drastic change leaves Hajin speechless. Elsewhere, the news reports on the museum incident, praising the vice captain of Essence of the Strait for defeating the monsters, before someone suddenly switches the television off. It's Nayun, sitting alone in her hospital room, looking completely depressed. Moments later, her father rushes in while calling her name, and she's surprised to see him there. She asks why he left work for her, but he tells her she's far more important. After checking on her condition, he suggests a full medical examination, but she refuses, insisting she's fine before asking why he came all the way here. He simply answers that he was worried about her, and once again, she reassures him that she's all right. After a brief silence, she hesitantly asks him something. She wants to visit her older brother before being discharged from the hospital. Looking at her expression, her father gently takes her hand and agrees. A demon seed is a human branded by a higher existence known as a demon, beings that stand above even the jinn. Anyone who becomes a demon seed enters an incubation period before eventually blooming into a full-fledged demon. According to Hajin's original settings, that incubation period lasts 5 to 6 years, and nearly half that time has already passed. Faced with this unexpected change, Hajin can think of only one solution. Before the demon inside Chai Jin-yoon fully awakens, he has to kill him. The only question left is how, and who will actually do it. It's not something that can simply be outsourced. No mercenary would ever accept a contract to assassinate the heir of a powerful family, and since there are no visible signs of a demon seed blooming, no one would even believe the warning. Even Kim Suho wouldn't be able to defeat a fully awakened demon alone, and if today's heroes were forced to fight it, several of them would inevitably lose their lives. Hajin can't allow that to happen, because those heroes are meant to become indispensable allies later in the story, which leaves only one conclusion. Meanwhile, Nayun quietly speaks to her unconscious brother, telling him she's come to visit. At the very same time, Hajin resolves that he must be the one to kill Chai Jin-yoon. Nayun begins talking about everything that happened at the museum, admitting it was her first time facing a jinn and how close she came to dying. She even starts mentioning Hajin before suddenly stopping herself. Shaking her head, she quietly says it's better not to talk about that. A nurse then informs her that visiting hours are over, so she says goodbye and promises to come back. As she walks out of the room, her expression grows noticeably darker. Hajin's words about her brother continue echoing in her mind. And with a cold, determined glare, she quietly directs all of her suspicion toward Hajin. Meanwhile, inside the Hero Tower's records room, Yoon Sunga is secretly searching through confidential files while her assistant nervously panics about them getting caught. Calmly brushing his worries aside, she explains that she only wants to review today's museum incident. The jinn's body contained traces of light attribute mana, meaning one of the people who defeated it must possess the light attribute. The thought immediately excites her, since light users are incredibly effective against jinn, much to her assistant's horror. Since the jinn was defeated by 3 cube cadets, she concludes that one of them has to be the light user. Kim Suho and Chai Nayun are already under observation. But Kim Hajin, ranked 934th, is a name she's never even heard before. Back at the academy, Hajin has recently made an interesting discovery. It turns out that no one else can actually see his laptop, allowing him to check settings without attracting anyone's attention. After realizing that, he decides to add another feature to it. A function that automatically alerts him whenever a setting different from his original novel appears within a 30-meter radius. It's far more efficient than waiting for messages from the co-author. Just then, someone suddenly calls out Hajin's name from behind. It's Nayun, and judging by the look on her face, she's still furious as she challenges him to a spar. Hajin ignores her at first before refusing outright, but she tries provoking him by asking if he's scared after saying those things about her family. Hajin calmly replies that they'll be using live ammunition, and he doesn't want to get in trouble for injuring a classmate, a response that only makes Nayun even angrier. Just then, the instructor steps in and asks what's going on before ordering Nayun to back off, reminding her that Hajin still doesn't have a proper training weapon. Annoyed, she reluctantly complies. As Nayan walks away, Hajin realizes there's still no point apologizing to her. Right now, his only priority is getting stronger so he can kill her older brother. Trying to mend their relationship now would only make her feel even more betrayed later. Elsewhere, inside another club room at Cube, the club president introduces himself, explaining that the club is called Truth and that his name is Yoon Hyan. He explains that their main activities revolve around monster analysis and raid strategy research, holding weekly discussions, while his charming appearance quickly captures the attention of the girls in the room. A handsome face, and the natural ability to captivate everyone around him. Both of those are actually abilities granted by a demon. During the early parts of the novel, Cube experiences countless incidents, from cadet kidnappings to monster invasions, and Yoon Hyan is the villain orchestrating them all. He's a djinn who obtained the power of charm from the demon Lilith. And he's also the very reason Hajin joined this academic club, because his true target is none other than Yuyona. As part of the orientation, Hyan tells everyone to relax before introducing the high intermediate monster known as the Mountain Tyrant, a creature that first appeared during the outcall nearly 50 years ago. Both inside and outside Cube, information on high-ranking monsters is worth a fortune, with knowledge of their weaknesses selling for millions of dollars. He asks if anyone knows the Mountain Tyrant's weak point before specifically calling on Yuyona. She admits she doesn't know, and Hyan smiles, saying that's actually the correct answer because discussions like these are the whole point of the club. He then invites everyone to stay for the after-party if they want to continue discussing monsters. Hajin asks Yona whether she's planning to attend, but she ignores him and walks away. Not giving up, Hajin calls out to her again, this time speaking much more formally. Yona finally answers that she'll attend since she might learn something useful, prompting Hajin to ask whether she plans to pass that information to her guild's raid team. The guild known as Essence of the Strait, founded 50 years ago during the outcall, with the Yu family at its center. Today, it stands as one of South Korea's most influential guilds. Hajin points out that the deputy guildmaster's influence within the guild has recently grown strong enough to threaten Yona's position as its rightful heir, which is exactly why she's attending the after-party for information. Hearing that, Yona tells him to stop beating around the bush. Hajin gets straight to the point, offering to reveal the Mountain Tyrant's weakness. The offer immediately catches her attention, and Hajin reminds her that she'll need achievements like this if she truly wants to inherit the guild one day. He tells her that the blue emblem on the Mountain Tyrant's heel is its weak point, and striking it will stop the monster's movement. Of course, he isn't willing to hand over information worth millions for free, especially since her guild owns the essential armory. In return, he wants her to arrange for him to buy a desert eagle through them. Yona pauses for a moment before asking what evidence he has to support such a claim, and Hajin simply smirks, then confidently admits that he has absolutely none. Left completely speechless, Yona snaps that he's wasting her time, while Hajin confidently warns that refusing to trust him will end up costing her far more. He knows that if she ignores him, information worth millions of dollars will simply go to waste. But if she chooses to believe him, he'll gain an incredibly powerful ally. And the very next day, Yona quietly tells her secretary to pass a message to the raid team. She instructs them to target the blue emblem on the Mountain Tyrant's heel before quietly blushing to herself, while Hajin realizes she's on the path to becoming the ally who will one day be known as the Queen of Seoul. Back at Cube, Hajin is suddenly greeted by a loan notice with his name on it. The amount leaves him completely speechless. Kim Chundong had somehow taken out a loan worth 300 million won, the maximum amount a Cube cadet could borrow, making Hajin wonder what on earth he had been thinking. Panicking, he immediately checks his bank account, only to find a balance of just 3 million won. At this rate, Hajin realizes he'll spend the rest of his life paying off debt instead of ever returning to his own world, which means making money has suddenly become his top priority. At the moment, he can think of only two reliable ways to earn it. The first is investing in guild stocks. Since towers and dungeons constantly appear throughout the world, guilds operate like major corporations, and the shares of public guilds can be traded on the stock market. He already knows which guilds will become future giants, but without enough capital to invest, that option is completely out of reach, which leaves him with only one remaining choice: field hunting. Unlike towers and dungeons, fields are dangerous monster zones with varying threat levels, but the monsters' bodies can be sold immediately for cash. The problem is that Hajin's current stats are barely above those of an average adult, leaving him unsure whether he can survive a hunt at all. Strengthening his current training pistol would only waste valuable SP, so he starts searching for another solution. Just then, someone knocks on his door with a package sent by Yuyona. Confused, Hajin wonders what she could have sent him. The moment he opens the briefcase, he's completely caught off guard by what's inside. Sometime later, Hajin arrives in Wanju, Gangwon-do, one of the world's field regions. After thanking him for using the portal, the receptionist becomes noticeably more polite the moment she learns he's a cube cadet. Hajin steps through the portal station and enters the city. Before him stretches a lively street. Since Gangwon-do is considered a low-danger field region, hunters from all over the world gather here so often that it's earned the nickname International Metropolis. Everywhere he looks, people are recruiting party members while others openly sell potions. Some are even selling rumors about a mysterious naked hunter. But while listening, Hajin suddenly notices something else. It's an agent office, making him realize selling monster materials would be much easier with an agent. So he starts considering finding one. Just then, someone approaches him from behind and asks if he's here to hunt monsters. Hajin asks whether he's an agent. The man says yes and tries handing over his business card, only to accidentally drop it, making Hajin immediately realize he's a little clumsy. But the moment Hajin reads the name on the card, he's genuinely shocked. It's Park Soo-hyuk, the man destined to become Kim Soo-ho's legendary agent. Hajin can't believe he's meeting someone like him in a place like this. Without hesitating, he immediately says he wants to sign a contract with him, leaving Park Soo-hyuk completely confused. Hajin knows the story has only just begun, meaning many important people still haven't discovered their true worth. Building connections early can only benefit him, though he can't help wondering whether it's really alright to take away Kim Soo-ho's future agent. Later, after entering the field zone, Hajin asks if it's alright for Soo-hyuk to accompany him. Soo-hyuk tells him not to worry, promising he'll immediately pull Hajin out if things become dangerous, making Hajin realize that agents without vehicles usually wait outside the field. Before long, Soo-hyuk spots the footprints of a hobgoblin, explaining that they're easy prey worth around 300,000 to 400,000 won each. Hajin isn't interested though, since each magic bullet costs him nearly 200,000 won. Hunting more valuable monsters would bring far greater profits, so he points toward another target instead. The creature turns out to be a steel boar, something Soo-hyuk quickly identifies. He immediately warns Hajin that a firearm won't be able to pierce its armored hide, but Hajin confidently tells him they'll find out soon enough. Hearing that leaves Soo-hyuk completely baffled, while Hajin simply replies that his gun isn't ordinary. After all, it's the weapon Yuyona gave him in exchange for the mountain tyrant's weakness. With that, Hajin draws his new weapon, a high-grade steel attribute Desert Eagle. The sight alone leaves Soo-hyuk speechless, especially since Hajin has already modified the weapon's settings using SP. Soo-hyuk gives one last warning that all he'll do is provoke the steel boar. Ignoring him completely, Hajin calmly pulls the trigger. The bullet tears straight through the steel boar's armored body, leaving Soo-hyuk staring in complete disbelief. A second later, the massive boar collapses from a single shot. Hajin then checks the changes he made to the Desert Eagle's settings. Standing atop the cliff with his new weapon in hand, Hajin quietly smirks and mutters, "Not bad." A thin trail of blue smoke slowly rises from the barrel of Hajin's Desert Eagle. Impressed by the shot, Soo-hyuk praises both the weapon's power and Hajin's incredible marksmanship, but Hajin simply brushes it off as nothing special. Without saying another word, Hajin suddenly fires another shot, startling Soo-hyuk. Confused, he asks what Hajin was aiming at, and Hajin calmly points toward a black pelican perched on a distant cliff. Staring into the distance, Soo-hyuk asks if he could actually see something that far away. Hajin casually replies that a distance like that is no more than an arm's reach for him. With the hunt finished, Hajin begins making his way back. By evening, both the steel boar and the black pelican have been prepared for transport. Looking at the massive corpses, Soo-hyuk remarks that even with only 2 monsters, they're unbelievably heavy, making Hajin ask if they'll really be able to carry them out of the field. Soo-hyuk suggests simply paying the dispatch fee and calling 911, adding that Hajin's reward money will be deposited by tomorrow. Hearing that, Hajin thinks this is exactly why Soo-hyuk is so dependable. After shaking hands, Soo-hyuk asks Hajin how his first hunt felt and what he plans to do with the reward money. Hajin answers without hesitation, he's going to invest it in stocks. That response leaves Soo-hyuk both surprised and confused. One guild immediately comes to Hajin's mind. The newly founded Packhorse Masters, a guild established by a demonic human that plays an important role later in the story. But the guild itself isn't what interests him most right now. It's the dungeon they clear. The Suwon Demon Denver. After Packhorse Masters conquers it, their stock price skyrockets by nearly 1,000%. It's practically guaranteed profit, making it one of the easiest opportunities to earn money. Looking for even more useful information, Hajin finds that public forums don't offer much, so he decides to browse a shady site known as Violet Society. That shady website immediately reminds him of something else. The Chameleon Troupe, the main villains of the latter half of the novel. Just like their name suggests, every member hides their identity, and the only person who knows where they operate is the author himself, Hajin. Since the Chameleon Troupe despises demonic humans despite being criminals themselves, Hajin begins wondering if their leader could help him kill Chai Jinyun. According to the original story, one of their positions is still vacant, meaning they should begin recruiting very soon. Just then, Hajin's laptop suddenly shuts off without warning. For a moment, he panics, thinking he's just lost his only chance of ever returning home. But a second later, the laptop powers back on, filling him with relief. A notification appears, stating that 1 month has passed before the laptop begins updating its features. Elsewhere, inside an upscale restaurant, everyone's attention is drawn toward Yona and Shin, with people quietly wondering if they're celebrities. Tired of yet another gathering for the upper class, Shin grumbles about how often these events happen, while Yona tells him to endure it because building connections with influential people is never a bad thing. Yona asks how his grades have been, and Shin casually says they're fine. When she tries motivating him to aim for first place, he cuts her off, saying he's perfectly satisfied. Hearing that, Yona simply nods and lets the topic drop. Just then, the restaurant door opens, and Chai Nayan walks inside. As Yona is about to call her over, Shin immediately jumps to his feet the moment he sees her. He rushes over, asking when she started attending these gatherings, but Nayan replies that she would have skipped it if she'd known he was coming. After he asks about her condition, she tells him it was nothing serious and to stop making such a fuss. Watching the two of them together, Yona quietly grows irritated. Out of nowhere, Nayan asks if either of them knows much about Kim Hajin, catching Yona off guard. Curious, Yona asks why, and Nayan explains that during the museum incident, Hajin was there alongside her and Kim Suho. The Jin turned out to be much stronger than anyone expected, and the three of them ended up fighting it together. Yet somehow, Hajin managed to seriously injure the Jin. She still can't believe someone using a weapon like that managed to blow off a demonic human's arm, making Hajin seem incredibly suspicious. Since Yona had been on the same team as him before, Nayan asks if she knows anything, leaving Yona deep in thought. Yona explains that she already investigated Hajin and only discovered that he's an orphan drowning in debt. Everything else remains a mystery, and since he refused to answer her questions, they'll simply have to keep investigating until they decide whether he's someone worth making use of. Even so, based on what she witnessed during practical training, she doesn't believe Hajin possessed enough power to destroy a demonic human's arm, making her suspect he's hiding something. Nayan then raises a shocking possibility. What if Hajin himself is a demonic human? Yona immediately dismisses the idea, pointing out that a demonic human wouldn't attack one of their own, but Nayan remains convinced that Hajin is hiding something. Meanwhile, Hajin stares at his laptop as the update slowly reaches 99.99%, wondering what's about to happen. Suddenly, a sharp pain shoots through his wrist as it begins glowing. Looking down, he notices a strange mark appearing, and his vision quickly starts to blur. The mark is revealed to be a stigma, one of the creator's authorities, containing immense magical power as an overwhelming flood of information crashes into Hajin's mind like a tsunami. Back at the restaurant, Shin suddenly slams his forehead onto the table, asking the girls if what they're really trying to say is that they simply don't like Hajin. Neither of them gives him an answer. At the same time, Hajin collapses to the ground, writhing in unbearable pain. Hearing Shin's words, Nayan once again remembers what Hajin said back at the museum. Taking everything into account, she quietly admits that maybe Shin is right. Meanwhile, Hajin lies unconscious on the floor with the glowing stigma engraved into his wrist. As the update finally completes, he receives a new low-grade gift called Book of Truth, while his gifts of observation and reading are strengthened. Sometime after the museum incident, Hajin, Kim Suho, and Chai Nayan are honored with the Exemplary Citizen Award for defeating the demonic human. Hajin arrives with a bandage wrapped around his wrist, the wound from yesterday still throbbing with pain. As he looks down at the strange mark on his wrist and wonders what kind of ability it really is, someone beside him lets out an annoyed sigh. It's Chai Nayan, who immediately tells Hajin to shut up. Hajin points out that he hasn't even said anything, but Nayan stubbornly tells him to shut up anyway. Smirking, Hajin asks if she's already forgotten something. Confused, she asks what he means, and he reminds her that he was the one who saved her. That instantly sets Nayan off, but before the argument can escalate, Suho steps in and tells them both to calm down. He asks Naeun if she'll switch seats with him, but she refuses. So in the end, Suho simply takes the seat next to Hajin instead. After pretending to cough awkwardly, Suho sincerely thanks Hajin for what happened at the museum. Confused, Hajin asks what he means, and Suho admits that without Hajin, the two of them would have died. Hajin, however, brushes off the compliment, saying he's sure they would have won even without him. After all, without his interference, Kim Suho might have awakened an even greater power. Because that's exactly what protagonists do. They become stronger whenever they're pushed into danger. Just then, the announcer asks everyone to stand as today's special guest arrives. An older man casually walks in, looking completely uninterested and mildly annoyed by the entire ceremony. He's none other than Yoo Si-hyuk, the supreme hero ranked 37th in the world. Better known as the Wolf of Valhalla, his overwhelming magical power alone leaves the crowd in awe. With that, the award ceremony officially begins as the recipients are called onto the stage. Yoo Si-hyuk personally presents the awards while the announcer praises the three cadets for defeating a demonic human and risking their lives to protect innocent civilians. Looking at Kim Suho, Si-hyuk confirms his identity before casually remarking that he can see why everyone is so eager to recruit him. Suho politely thanks him for the compliment. As he hands over the award, Si-hyuk advises Suho to never join the Hero Association, suggesting he'd have a much better life working under Vast Plane instead, since heroes carry endless responsibilities with very little freedom. But Suho simply replies that he believes becoming a hero suits him best. Hearing that answer, Si-hyuk silently labels him as boring. He then turns toward Naeun and casually says it's been a while. Excited, Naeun calls him master, but Si-hyuk immediately cuts her off, asking how he could possibly be the master of an archer. He explains that her father merely asked him to keep an eye on her, something he never had much interest in doing. Finally, Si-hyuk looks over at Hajin, asks who he is, and after Hajin introduces himself, Si-hyuk casually hands him the award with nothing more than a simple okay. That moment makes Hajin realize why indifference hurts even more than hatred. With that, the ceremony comes to an end, and Naeun is invited to give a short speech. Later that day, Hajin enjoys himself with a meal using part of the reward money he received. The rest of it will go toward buying more shares in Packhorse Masters, but before that, he decides to check the new features added to his laptop. The first new feature is Stigma, the name given to the mysterious mark on his wrist. Unfortunately, its description is incredibly vague, only stating that he can use it however he wishes. Curious, Hajin quietly says the words, "as I wish," causing the stigma to suddenly glow and begin projecting itself. Startled, he quickly hides it again, deciding it's safer to examine it later in his room. Next, he opens the newly unlocked internet access feature on his laptop, and the moment it loads, he's genuinely surprised. He immediately realizes this isn't some fake system. It connects to the real internet. Not only can he access normal websites, but there are also hidden ones that require payment before entry. Among them, one site immediately catches his attention, the Violet Society. It's the most famous underground network, serving as a marketplace for information, weapons, bounties, and special requests. Nearly every hero has dealt with the Violet Society at some point, which is why the government tolerates its existence despite knowing about its underground operations. Normally, joining requires an expensive entrance fee, but thanks to the system, Hajin can register using only 200 SP. Just as he's about to complete his registration, someone suddenly walks up to his table. It's Yoon Sunga. She asks whether Hajin knows who she is, mentioning that she was surprised when he disappeared before the ceremony ended. She then hands him her business card, a gesture carrying tremendous significance coming from someone like Yoon Sunga. Sunga explains that there's something she's been curious about. Then she asks if she can ask Hajin a single question, making him realize that this is the very first step of Yoon Sunga's recruitment attempt. Hajin knows that, to the public, Yoon Sunga appears kinder than anyone else, but her true personality is completely different. She has no hesitation in abandoning anyone who fails to meet her expectations, even if she personally went through great effort to recruit them, living by the law of survival of the fittest. That's the kind of person Yoon Sunga, the vice captain of Korea's greatest guild, truly is. Even so, Hajin knows that building a connection with her now could become incredibly valuable as the story progresses. Just as Sunga is about to ask her question, Hajin suddenly cuts her off with a simple, "no." Before she can even finish speaking, he tells her that he has nothing to say. Sunga calmly explains that he might be misunderstanding, reminding him that she's approaching him as the vice captain of Korea's #1 guild. Hajin politely replies that he appreciates the interest, but only if it's genuine. He knows she only came because she discovered someone had used a light attribute attack, and the attention she's showing now is nothing more than curiosity. That's exactly why he decides to reject her now, hoping that curiosity will eventually grow into genuine interest. With that, Hajin gets up and walks away, leaving Sunga standing there completely speechless. Back in his room, Hajin begins experimenting with his new stigma, trying to shape its magical power into the form of a dagger. The stigma starts glowing, and a dagger gradually materializes from the light. He quickly realizes that controlling it is as simple as imagining what he wants. Magic power is one of the most important stats, greatly influencing both gifts and the speed at which new abilities are learned. At first, Hajin thought he wouldn't be able to use magic power at all since he didn't originally belong to this world, so he's relieved to discover that he actually can. With that settled, he moves on to testing his next new ability, the Book of Truth. The moment he speaks its name, the book materializes through his stigma. The Book of Truth can answer any question, as long as Hajin has enough magic power to support it. Curious, he asks something simple, his own height, and the book answers correctly. It also consumes 1 SP in the process, helping Hajin understand exactly how the ability works. Suddenly, his smartwatch begins flashing bright red. An emergency alert reports that a cube cadet named Jin Haejong has gone missing. The moment Hajin sees the notification, he realizes it's begun. The second major story arc, the Cube serial murder incident. Throughout this arc, 6 cadets disappear over the course of a single month. With no clues leading to the culprit, the investigation falls into chaos, and as if mocking everyone, the number of disappearances only continues to rise. This arc is especially important because the killer's final target is Yuyona. If the co-author's changes end up costing the protagonist one of his most important allies like what almost happened at the museum, it'll create huge problems. So Hajin decides it'd be better if he catches the culprit first. But acting recklessly could change the story even further. So for now, he decides the safest option is simply to observe. Meanwhile, inside the training room, Suho finishes his workout and drinks a bottle of water. Just then, another student approaches and tells him to come look at something. A group of students is surrounding Hajin, refusing to let him train. They mock him for being unable to lift even that amount of weight despite being a cube cadet, accusing him of embarrassing the entire academy. Suho immediately moves to step in, but the student beside him stops him, saying there's no need to interfere. Suho calls out Songhan for allowing this to happen despite being the class president, but Songhan replies that Hajin offended Shin Jonghak, and getting involved would only make things troublesome. Besides, he argues that if Hajin had really blown off a demonic human's arm, there's no way he'd let himself be bullied by people like them. As Hajin struggles to lift the weights and fails, everyone watching is shocked that he can't even manage something so basic. Seeing that, Songhan dismisses Hajin's achievement against the demonic human as nothing but luck. Unable to watch any longer, Kim Suho walks over to defend Hajin, while Nayun silently watches everything unfold from the corner. Before anything escalates, the instructor arrives, loudly demanding to know why everyone's causing a disturbance during training. He tells everyone to gather around because the results of the previous quiz have been posted and can now be checked on the notice board. The students immediately crowd around, comparing scores and discussing the rankings. As for Hajin, he somehow ends up taking first place, which makes perfect sense to him since he essentially cheated using his knowledge of the novel settings. Standing behind him, Rachel accidentally drops her rapier in complete shock. Rachel Elizabeth Louise, the Princess of England and Cube's third-ranked cadet, has always been an outstanding student. Ever since entering Cube, she has never once lost first place in any written exam, no matter how big or small. Seeing Rachel's stunned reaction leaves Hajin both speechless and more than a little worried. Rachel recalls the day her butler and personal attendant congratulated her for being accepted into Cube, along with praising her progress in learning Korean. She confidently assured them that everything was fine and that she would live up to their expectations. After all, she carried the honor of England's royal family on her shoulders. Back in the present, however, Rachel is quietly devastated after losing first place and silently apologizes to her family. Meanwhile, the instructor openly praises Hajin's perfect answers in phenomenon realm analysis, telling every cadet to learn from his example. Rachel immediately decides she'll close the gap between them, but since phenomenon realm analysis is one of the academy's hardest subjects, she realizes catching up before midterms won't be easy. From that day on, she begins quietly observing Hajin throughout class, curious to find out exactly how he studies. Meanwhile, Back in his room, Hajin visits a website called the Information Center for Veritas, planning to use the Book of Truth to answer questions while earning a little extra money. Since the Book of Truth can retrieve information from virtually anywhere as long as he has enough SP, he knows profits will be small at first due to his lack of credibility, but once word spreads, customers will naturally follow. With that in mind, he registers himself as a seller on the website. After that, he finally decides it's time to spend the SP he's been saving. Now that the second major story arc has begun, Cube is no longer safe from demonic humans. Looking over his current abilities, including setting intervention and Deadeye, Hajin realizes they're still far from enough to face enemies like that. Fortunately, thanks to all the SP he earned from Shin's group constantly bullying him, he can now invest more heavily in survival. The first thing he decides to upgrade is his weapon. Using setting intervention, he adds a transformation function that lets it switch from a handgun into a sniper rifle. Looking over the completed settings, even Hajin wonders if he went a little overboard. After spending 250 SP, his Desert Eagle instantly transforms into a sniper rifle. Chuckling to himself, Hajin enjoys the surprise factor before transforming it back into its original handgun form. Next, he decides to create a new art. Unlike gifts, which rely on magic power to produce supernatural effects, arts are refined physical techniques developed through skill. Since positioning is the most important ability for both survival and assassination as a sharpshooter, he starts designing an art centered around mobility. In the end, he creates parkour, granting flexible and agile body movements at the cost of 350 SP. The effects kick in immediately, letting Hajin know the art was successfully created. Just then, his smartwatch suddenly flashes with another missing person alert, this time for Sunjian from the Universe class. Hajin immediately recognizes this as the second victim, knowing that everyone abducted before Yuna was eventually murdered by the culprit. He starts questioning whether it's really right to keep standing by when he already knows both the killer and the identity of the next victim. For the first time, genuine doubt begins creeping into his mind. The following morning, everyone gathers at Cube's outdoor training grounds. The instructor confirms everyone's attendance before announcing that today's practical training will be something special. Behind him stands an artificial dungeon, the pinnacle of magical engineering. Filled with monster puppets that perfectly replicate real monsters, it allows cadets to experience an authentic dungeon raid without leaving Cube. Even so, the instructor warns them not to lower their guard just because it's a training exercise. Inside this enormous dungeon, both the Veritas and Discipline classes will participate in a joint training operation. Each class will combine two teams into a larger squad, and everyone is instructed to gather with their assigned teammates. After regrouping, Hajin finds himself on Team B alongside Yuna, Jin Hozung, Hazuki, and 4 students from Discipline class, Jaden, Kim Jingyu, Oh Soo-jong, and Lee Jinsha. Hajin knows the artificial dungeon is filled with hidden traps and puzzles, and some of them may have already been altered into traps set by demonic humans. Just in case, he's prepared several attribute bullets, though he still wonders whether everyone will make it out alive. Just then, his laptop suddenly issues a warning that a setting has changed. Looking closer, Hajin realizes there aren't just one but 3 separate changes, leaving him frantically searching for who caused them. Over on Suho's team, Yuna impatiently yells at him to hurry up before joking that he looks like a breadstick. Immediately afterward, a notification appears stating that her personality has become noticeably more short-tempered. Back with Hajin's team, Jaden casually grabs Yuna's hand while introducing himself, earning nothing but a disgusted look from her. Meanwhile, over on Nayun's team, she notices a member from the hunting club but struggles to remember his name. He introduces himself as Sven. At that exact moment, another notification appears, revealing that Sven's mental state has deteriorated and that the likelihood of him being possessed by a demon pawn during the dungeon raid has increased dramatically. Watching these setting changes pile up one after another, Hajin realizes the situation has already turned into a complete catastrophe. Wanting to understand the situation better, Hajin takes a closer look. Realizing there are 2 people here, he needs to watch carefully. The first is Jaden, someone who acts arrogant around the weak but folds in front of anyone stronger, a textbook narcissist. Despite being talented enough to attract the attention of Essence of the Straight, Hajin can't help wondering why his potential has suddenly become important. Jaden begins introducing his teammates, Jingyu, Oh Soo-jong, and Lee Jinsha. Yuna then introduces her own team, Jin Hozung, Hazuki, and Lee Hajin, accidentally getting Hajin's surname wrong, which immediately annoys him. After observing him for a moment, Ha-jin decides there's nothing else worth learning about Jaden. His attention shifts to the second person he needs to watch, Sven from Team 3, a government-sponsored international student and one of Germany's brightest future heroes. More importantly, Sven has feelings for Nayun. Like many international students who came to Cube, Sven dreamed of rising to the very top. But reality proved far harsher than he expected. Surrounded by monsters disguised as fellow cadets, he gradually became nothing more than an average student. It was the first time in his life he experienced true inferiority and defeat, and combined with the instability of adolescence, it eventually drove him to sell his soul to a demon in exchange for overwhelming power. That much still matches Ha-jin's original novel, but what worries him is the notification mentioning the dungeon raid. Sven's awakening has been moved forward, and Ha-jin can only hope it won't derail the story too much. Just then, someone suddenly grabs him from behind. It's Jaden, who asks if Ha-jin is really the team's sharpshooter before warning him not to lower his guard inside the dungeon. Ha-jin coldly tells him to get lost, prompting Jaden to remark that the rumors about him really must be true, which only irritates Ha-jin further. Apparently, Ha-jin's reputation has already hit rock bottom. A rumor spreading through Universe class claims he's abusing his status as a Cube cadet to blackmail people while spending every weekend indulging himself in Seoul. And Ha-jin has a pretty good idea who's responsible for spreading it. Even so, he can't help wondering why none of his teammates are doing anything about it when they're supposed to be working together. Soon, the instructor orders everyone to enter the dungeon in sequence, beginning with Team 1. While waiting, Jaden tries making conversation with Yona about her ranking as the top supporter. Yona casually replies that she's heard rumors about him as well, and even suggests the teams were poorly assembled. Jaden then points directly at Ha-jin, saying that every team has someone weighing it down while others carry the burden, instantly irritating Ha-jin. Before long, their team finally enters the dungeon. They arrive at a large chamber branching into several different paths, making Jaden wonder if this is the first challenge. As Yona considers which route to take, Jaden turns to his team's sharpshooter, Jingyu, for an opinion. But before Jingyu can answer, Ha-jin confidently recommends route number 6. Jaden immediately objects, yet Yona unexpectedly accepts Ha-jin's suggestion without hesitation. She even compliments him, saying that despite looking like an idiot, he has surprisingly sharp instincts. Hearing that, Ha-jin quietly thinks everything is going according to plan, since Yona's decision lets them take the same route as Nayun's team. If Sven really is going to make a contract with a demonic human during this raid, Nayun won't be able to handle it alone, and if anything happens to her, the entire story will fall apart. That's why he can't let her die, and with that, the team heads down route number 6. Still annoyed, Jaden keeps complaining about Ha-jin's attitude, but Ha-jin simply tells him to worry about the monsters waiting ahead instead. Jaden scoffs, asking what monsters he's talking about, only for Ha-jin to point out the salamanders standing right in front of them, adding that it's probably connected to a dungeon switch as well. Jingyu asks if she should fire a light arrow, and after Yona gives the order, the glowing arrow illuminates the darkness, revealing a grade 6 low-intermediate monster, a salamander. Jaden is caught off guard but immediately orders everyone into formation before asking if anyone can use the water attribute. Ha-jin silently decides this still isn't the right moment to reveal what he has. So the team sticks with the conventional strategy instead, while Yona draws her whip. She lashes out just as the salamander prepares to unleash a blast of fire. Wrapping her whip around its mouth to seal it shut, she creates the perfect opening for Hazuki and Sujong to attack. Within moments, the salamander is defeated. Watching the electricity crackling around Yona's whip, Ha-jin wonders if she's already reached the Eye of Enlightenment stage. Just as he's silently admiring her, he suddenly trips over a loose stone and crashes straight into Yona, causing something to barely miss both of them. The two of them tumble to the ground face first, while Ha-jin immediately breaks into a cold sweat. Furious, Yona tells him to get off, and Ha-jin quickly scrambles backward. She grabs him by the collar, ready to punch him, when the rest of the team suddenly notices something strange. An arrow is lodged deep in the wall, leaving everyone wondering where it came from. Ha-jin quickly realizes it was fired at the exact moment they fell. It wasn't an ordinary arrow either, it was coated in a deadly neurotoxin. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the dungeon, someone is sprinting through the tunnels as Sven collapses after being struck by another poisoned arrow, apologizing while telling his teammates to leave him behind. Nayun immediately yells at him to shut up, ordering him to get up and keep running if he still has the strength to talk. She can't believe they're being subjected to a training exercise where poison-coated darts are actually being fired at them. Grabbing Sven, She desperately tries to drag him away. But when she looks back, she's horrified to see a gigantic lava monster chasing them, making her yell, wondering why something like that is even inside the dungeon. Back with Hajin's team, they're steadily fighting their way through the dungeon. As a pack of small lizard-like monsters charges at Jingyu, Jaden quickly blocks them with his shield. Taking advantage of the opening, Jingyu fires from behind his cover while Yona handles another group on her own. Before long, the battle comes to an end, and Hozung asks if they've finally cleared everything. Everyone agrees the dungeon has been surprisingly easy so far. Aside from the earlier poison arrows, they've only encountered weak monsters like peanut flames and salamanders, so they decide to keep advancing. But Hajin can't stop thinking about that poisoned arrow, wondering if it really was just another trap when even cube cadets shouldn't have been able to detect it. As he continues thinking, a faint flame flickers behind them, and the instant Hajin senses its presence, his expression changes. A salamander that everyone thought was already dead has secretly prepared another breath attack aimed directly at the team. It fires without warning, leaving everyone far too late to react. Instinctively, Hajin thrusts out his hand and activates his stigma. Using its magical power, he instantly converts it into a wall of water. A massive wall erupts in front of the team, completely blocking the salamander's fiery breath. Having exhausted all its strength, the salamander collapses moments later. Everyone is left stunned by the monster's overwhelming power, wondering if it was truly just a training monster, since even the flames that barely grazed them caused painful burns. Suddenly, Jaden grabs Hajin by the collar and demands to know why he stayed quiet earlier when everyone was asking if anyone could use the water attribute. Hajin quickly claims it was simply an effect of his armament, but Jaden doesn't believe a word of it before Yona steps in and orders both of them to stop arguing. Sujong points out that the salamander was a real monster rather than a puppet and wonders how it even got inside. Yona suggests that since the dungeon perfectly replicates a natural environment, it may have evolved naturally, and decides they should leave the corpse alone since it might still count toward their reward points. With that settled, she orders everyone to continue moving. Deep down, however, Yona is convinced Hajin lied about his armament. Someone struggling to afford even a desert eagle shouldn't possess equipment like that, and outside of monsters like Kim Suho or Shin Jonghak, very few people can naturally imbue attributes into their magic. Combined with the fact that Hajin somehow knew the mountain tyrant's weakness and could use elemental magic, she begins questioning why he's hiding so much. Before long, Nayun's earlier suspicion resurfaces in her mind. And for the first time, Yona starts wondering whether Hajin could really be hiding something far more dangerous. Meanwhile, Team 3 comes face to face with a Class 5 intermediate monster, the Magma Golem, and assumes it's the dungeon's final boss. One of the students asks Nayun whether they can defeat it, but she admits it'll be difficult and suggests waiting for the other teams so they can fight together. The blonde student reminds everyone to properly treat Sven's poisoned wound, while Nayun continues wondering where that mysterious arrow even came from, feeling that this training is strangely difficult. Sven, meanwhile, can't stop blaming himself for being struck by the poisoned arrow. He breaks down in tears, saying that nothing has gone right since coming to Cube and that every moment has been nothing but suffering. Then, a mysterious voice suddenly calls out to him, leaving Sven wondering who's speaking. The voice quietly offers him the power to become stronger, leaving him speechless. It tempts him further, claiming the price is far lower than continuing to risk everything before extending a hand toward him. Desperate to become stronger, Sven reaches out and accepts the offer. At that moment, the demon begins completely consuming his body. Sven lets out a horrifying scream of agony, immediately drawing everyone's attention. Unsure what's happening, the others rush over while Nayun orders them to pin him down. But the commotion catches the Magma Golem's attention, and it immediately turns toward the group. Realizing the danger, Nayun instantly orders everyone to run as the Magma Golem opens its mouth and unleashes a torrent of lava. The Magma Golem swings its massive arm toward the spot where everyone had been standing. Fortunately, the group had already started running, with Nayun carrying Sven on her back. The Golem's attack tears through everything in its path, sending several of her teammates flying, while Nayun barely manages to escape herself. Choking on the smoke and debris, she looks up just as the Magma Golem closes the distance. At that moment, she's convinced there's no way this thing is just another training puppet. As the Golem begins charging its next attack, the only thought running through Nayun's mind is that she's about to die in a place like this. Just then, a single bullet cuts through the air and strikes the Golem, bursting into a splash of water. Confused, Nayun looks toward the other side of the dungeon. Standing there is none other than Kim Hajin. A few minutes earlier, Hajin and his team had arrived at a massive wall blocking their path. One of his teammates complains that Hajin insisted the boss room was here, even though the way is completely sealed, but Hajin calmly replies that they're already in the right place. Although Hajin knows that wall wasn't supposed to exist, he decides it doesn't really matter. He tells everyone the boss room is directly beyond the wall and suggests trying to break through it. One of them attacks the wall, only to be thrown back by the recoil instead. Frustrated, he complains that there's no way anyone can break it, while Haji notices that even a magic-infused slash failed to leave a single scratch. Just then, Hazuki spots a narrow opening near the top of the wall. Hajin immediately says they can climb through there, but Jaden points out that the wall is over 10 meters high and impossible to scale. Hajin simply replies that if they can't climb it, then he'll go on alone. Activating his parkour art, he effortlessly climbs the wall. Watching him scale it so easily, Jaden can't help wondering if Hajin is secretly part cat. Suddenly, the entire dungeon begins shaking, leaving Jaden wondering what the hell is happening. Back at the boss fight, Hajin is surprised to see the magma golem already on the move. He immediately shouts for Nayun to get moving, and to save Sven while she's at it. Right then, the rest of Nayun's team rushes in, calling for battle formation as they launch a coordinated assault on the golem. But none of their attacks even make it flinch. Seeing her teammates arrive, Nayun gets back on her feet and draws her bow once again. As she begins charging her strongest attack, she tells everyone to buy her a little more time. Suddenly, someone crashes into the golem with a devastating strike. It's Sven, who apologizes for arriving late. As Nayun prepares to release her arrow, Sven flips backward to create an opening. Remembering what happened during the museum incident, Nayun declares that this time things will be different. She unleashes a massive attack that completely obliterates the magma golem in a single shot. The magma golem lies shattered across the ground, broken into countless pieces. Staring at the remains, everyone struggles to believe they actually defeated a magma golem and wonders whether it will count toward their score. Nayun and Sven soon catch up with the rest of the team. After making sure everyone is alright, the others begin praising Nayun for defeating the golem in a single blow, and she proudly admits it was her finishing move. Watching Sven, Hajin realizes he hasn't fully transformed into a demon yet, meaning the story has already diverged from the original. But it's only a delay. The fact remains that Sven already formed a contract with a demon, and not knowing when he'll lose control only makes the situation even more dangerous. While everyone else celebrates, Nayun notices Hajin sitting by himself. After hesitating for a moment, she slowly walks over to him. Looking a little awkward, she tells him there's something she wanted to say. Stuttering slightly, she quietly thanks Hajin. Completely caught off guard, Hajin asks if she really just thanked him. Embarrassed, Nayun snaps back that she already said it once. Even Hajin can't believe Nayun actually thanked him. Ever since her 6th birthday, when she lost her mother to a demonic human, Nayun's life has been filled with tragedy. While other children spent their days laughing and playing, she trained herself relentlessly. She never allowed herself to build deep friendships because opening up to someone meant exposing her own weaknesses. That's why so few people have ever heard genuine words of gratitude from Nayun, and even fewer have ever stood beside her as true friends. As the author, Hajin deliberately wrote her character so she'd say, "I'm sorry," far more often than "thank you." After a brief silence, Nayun asks why someone as strong as him lets Shin Jonghak's group keep bullying him. After all, if he was capable of stopping the magma golem earlier, dealing with those guys should be effortless. Hajin calmly replies that even if he wanted to fight back, he simply can't beat them. Nayun doesn't believe him, reminding him of the power she witnessed from his weapon. In response, Hajin shows her the gun and explains that it's a privately owned weapon, which is why it performs so differently. The moment she sees it, Nayun panics, warning him that he'll be expelled if anyone discovers it, but Hajin reassures her that he only uses it when absolutely necessary. Besides, now that he's learned to store it inside his stigma, no one will ever find it during an inspection. Even so, Nayun insists that his strength can't be explained by the weapon alone and asks if his gift enhances firearms. Hajin simply tells her to believe whatever explanation she likes. Satisfied with that answer, Nayun confidently says she knew it all along and promises to pretend she never saw anything. Just as she's about to leave, she suddenly stops and asks whether Hajin has anything he wants to say to her. Hajin remains silent for a long moment before quietly answering that he doesn't. Hearing that, Nayun simply says, "I see," before walking away. Hajin knows that if he apologized right now for mentioning her brother, she'd probably forgive him. But he can't allow that to happen. He has to keep their relationship distant and awkward. Because one day, he'll have to kill Chai Jin-yoon. One of Na-yoon's teammates asks whether she's gotten close to Ha-jin, but she immediately denies it with obvious annoyance. Watching the exchange from afar, Sven wears an unsettling expression. Suddenly, an emergency announcement orders every cadet to suspend the raid and evacuate the dungeon immediately. The instructors explain that multiple problems occurred during the exercise. Surveillance cameras malfunctioned, real monsters somehow entered the artificial dungeon, and the examiner deployment was thrown into chaos before anyone realized what was happening. Although it was an extremely serious incident, there were thankfully no casualties, so instead of requesting outside assistance, Cube announces that it will handle the investigation internally. In other words, the demonic humans who had already infiltrated Cube's leadership successfully managed to cover everything up. Ha-jin knows a large-scale investigation won't begin until after the second story arc, so he decides to put that issue aside for now. The side effects of making a contract with a demon include emotional instability and dangerous obsession, and the worst possible outcome would be Sven completely losing control while alone with Na-yoon. To prevent that from happening, Ha-jin decides to check both Sven's and Na-yoon's recent activities. As he opens the messages, he can't help feeling guilty about invading Na-yoon's privacy. There, he finds a conversation between her and Sven discussing a bet. According to the original story, today is the day Sven is supposed to go berserk. Realizing that, Ha-jin decides to follow them while making a few preparations in advance. Since he's also grown considerably stronger by now, he heads toward Mount Gari Dungeon. Just then, his smartwatch suddenly lights up, leaving Ha-jin wondering why this particular person is calling him. Answering the call, he sees that it's Kim Suho. After greeting Ha-jin, Suho asks if he's free this Friday because there's something he'd like to ask of him. Mount Gari, located in Gangwon-do, is a place overflowing with pure spiritual energy, earning it the title of the Mecca of training for martial artists across the nation. But martial artists aren't the only ones who come here, as many people roam these mountains searching for valuable treasures instead of hunting monsters. One particularly strange-looking man proudly introduces himself as one of those treasure hunters. Ha-jin simply replies, "I see." The man assumes he's searching for wild ginseng and tells him he won't find it that way, but Ha-jin calmly explains that he's looking for somewhere else. Ignoring Ha-jin's answer completely, the man insists everyone says the same thing before launching into a long speech about his business. Ha-jin tunes him out and walks away, while the man mutters that the kid still has a long way to go. Moments later, Ha-jin suddenly trips over something. Looking down, he realizes it's a wild ginseng root. A little later, Ha-jin eats the ginseng after modifying its settings, temporarily increasing his variable stats by 2 for the next 30 minutes. Though if he had sold it instead, it would have easily been worth at least 700 million won. As he continues climbing, Ha-jin nearly slips off the mountainside, realizing the cliffs are so steep that the place he's searching for is almost impossible to find. Hidden deep within Mount Gari, beyond countless vines and thick moss, lies an undead dungeon. Its boss is a Grade 1 intermediate monster known as the Death Knight, and even with the ginseng enhancing his stats, Ha-jin knows he's nowhere near strong enough to defeat it. Fortunately, fighting the dungeon boss isn't his objective today. Suddenly, countless undead begin crawling out of the ground around him. Because Ha-jin isn't here for the boss, he's here for the hidden stage. Activating his stigma, he draws his weapon and immediately opens fire on the undead. He cuts them down one after another while using clairvoyance to scout the path ahead. After mapping the entire route, Ha-jin flips over the horde and shoots every last one of them in rapid succession. Before long, every undead in sight has been wiped out. Yet more undead continue emerging from the ground, making Ha-jin realize he's getting close to Evangel's abode. It's the home of Witch Evangel, the hidden boss of Mount Gari, who will one day establish Evangel's castle, the most infamous undead fortress in history, inside an abandoned church in Suwon. But Ha-jin didn't come here to fight her. He's here for the two treasures hidden within her domain, Ether and Evangel's seed. Ether is the growth-type weapon later wielded by the demonic human executive Tomer, making it the perfect weapon for Ha-jin's own growth. Before long, Ha-jin arrives at a long stone pathway and immediately uses clairvoyance to look ahead. At the end of the path stands a massive tree covered in glowing purple crystals, with a small child quietly sitting beneath it. Ha-jin knows that once a witch fully matures, she's incredibly difficult to kill, so she has to be eliminated while both her body and mind are still incomplete. The little girl slowly notices Ha-jin approaching. Ha-jin silently stares at her, finding it harder than expected to pull the trigger. He quickly forces himself to stay focused, reminding himself that this has to be done, just as Tomer once did. Besides, he's the one who created her in the first place, so he quietly raises his weapon. Since a witch's spiritual form can't be destroyed by an ordinary bullet, Hajin unleashes his stigma and condenses light attribute magic into a spear. Feeling the ginseng's effects flowing through his body, he hurls the spear while joking to himself that he almost feels like Yuyona. The spear flies straight toward its target and lands a perfect hit. Even so, Hajin realizes she's still alive, though her body has already begun fading away. Cracks spread across her body until she completely disappears. Watching her vanish, Hajin quietly concludes that perhaps this was simply the nature of her existence. And with her gone, Hajin successfully obtains both Ether and Evangel's seed. With Ether in his possession, all of Hajin's variable stats increase by 0.6, leaving him impressed by its passive effects. And knowing it'll only become stronger as it grows, Hajin realizes he's finally reached the level of an average cube cadet. On top of that, he earned another 47 SP, and the remaining ginseng has already been listed on the Violet Society, where it should sell before long. But even more important than Ether is Evangel's seed. Witch of Despair is certainly a fitting name for a villain, though Hajin believes she'll become a valuable ally if raised properly. Raising the seed is surprisingly simple. Instead of water, it only requires a small amount of blood. However, the witch's personality and nature are shaped by the blood she's fed, so Hajin has to be extremely careful whose blood he uses. Deciding not to rush it, he puts the seed away for now and heads to bed early. After all, tomorrow is going to be exhausting. The next day arrives at Bioakpa Mineral Spring in Gangwon-do. The hunting club president begins taking attendance while introducing herself, since this is everyone's first meeting after orientation. She once again explains the club's purpose. Leonidas regularly organizes hunting trips like this, treating the extermination of dangerous wildlife as both a hobby and a way of helping civilians. Listening to her, Hajin recalls that he only wrote the broad outline of today's event, leaving him unsure of many of the details. In the original story, Nayoon is severely injured, while Sven dies after going berserk as a demonic human. The entire incident existed solely to make Kim Suho care more deeply about Nayoon. By making everyone believe Nayoon is the demonic human's target, the real enemy is free to strike their true objective while the search teams are distracted. What worries Hajin now is that Sven's settings have already changed. Unlike the original story, he hasn't gone berserk yet and is already making limited use of his demonic powers. Part of Hajin wants to eliminate him before things get worse. Meanwhile, Nayoon notices Hajin repeatedly glancing in her direction and starts wondering why he keeps hanging around while pretending not to care, eventually misunderstanding the situation and questioning whether he likes her. Sven quietly warns her to be careful, and when Nayoon asks if he's talking about Hajin, Sven instead brings up the recent disappearances. But Nayoon immediately replies that Hajin isn't that kind of person, a response that only irritates Sven. Keeping an eye on both of them, Hajin silently watches as the hunt officially begins. Elsewhere in the forest, strange black tendrils suddenly wrap around a deer and slowly choke it to death. The one controlling those tendrils is Sven, but just as he continues using his demonic power, someone suddenly calls his name, making him stop immediately. It's Nayoon, carrying a deer over her shoulder while proudly claiming she's won their bet. But the moment she sees Sven's score, she's left completely shocked and asks how he managed to catch so many. Sven calmly tells her that he actually won the bet, leaving Nayoon with no choice but to honor her promise as she asks what he wants. Blushing nervously, Sven prepares to confess his feelings. Hidden in the nearby bushes, Hajin watches everything unfold, fully aware that Sven formed a contract with Asmodeus, the demon of lust. For someone whose desires have been amplified by demonic power, patience is no longer an option. Gathering his courage, Sven asks Nayoon to go out with him. The sudden confession catches Nayoon completely off guard. When Sven asks if she doesn't want to, she honestly replies that she'd never accept a confession from someone she's only known for a week. Meanwhile, Hajin quietly waits for Sven's true demonic human nature to finally reveal itself. To make matters worse, Nayoon casually adds that she only likes men who are stronger than she is. Those words immediately agitate Sven. As Nayoon turns to leave, demonic tendrils begin emerging from Sven's body as he asks whether she truly meant what she said. He tells her that if strength is all she wants, then she'll have no choice but to accept him once he's stronger. Just as Nayoon turns back to stop him, she's suddenly attacked. The tendrils shoot toward her and make contact, but something immediately feels wrong to Sven. Standing between them is Hajin, who blocks the attack with his shield. While checking if Nayoon is alright, Hajin is suddenly attacked by Sven. As Nayun reaches for her weapon, Sven's tendrils wrap around Hajin and begin choking him. Concentrating mana into her hand, Nayun immediately launches an attack at Sven. But it has no effect whatsoever, and Sven finally loses complete control, repeatedly confessing his love while rampaging as a full demonic human. Refusing to give up, Nayun gathers an enormous amount of magical power into her hand, leaving Hajin visibly surprised. Every once in a while, this world produces people with extraordinary talent who never reach their true potential simply because they chose the wrong weapon. And among all of them, Chai Nayun possesses the greatest hidden potential. She once again shouts for Sven to let Hajin go before unleashing everything she's gathered. In the next instant, an overwhelming torrent of mana erupts from her attack. Nayun's attack tears through everything in its path, leaving behind a massive crater stretching across the battlefield. Staring at the destruction, Hajin asks what that attack was, but Nayun admits she has no idea herself. She then asks if Hajin is alright, and after he says he is, she asks once again just to make sure. Relieved to hear that, she quietly says, "That's a relief," before suddenly losing consciousness, making Hajin call out her name in panic. Later that night, Nayun slowly regains consciousness. The first thing she realizes is that she's being carried on Hajin's back. Hajin explains that she refused to wake up, so he had no choice but to carry her down the mountain. Embarrassed, Nayun orders him to put her down, and after Hajin jokingly asks if she's sure, she impatiently tells him to hurry up. The moment he sets her down, however, her legs immediately give out beneath her. Frightened, she wonders why she suddenly can't move her legs. Hajin asks if this is her first time experiencing magic power exhaustion, leaving Nayun completely speechless. Seeing her reaction, Hajin explains that it happens when someone depletes their internal magic power too quickly, only for Nayun to snap that she already knows what it is. He tells her she won't be able to walk properly for the next day or two before simply telling her to climb back on, which she reluctantly does. As he carries her again, Hajin suddenly asks if she's really planning to keep using a bow, leaving Nayun wondering what he's talking about. Hajin quietly tells her that she must have felt it herself. He explains that what she unleashed today was her true gift, a power capable of multiplying her strength as long as her magic has a proper conductor. A supreme sword powerful enough to cut down hundreds of monsters and people with a single swing. A woman destined to dominate large-scale warfare, the unrivaled overlord of the battlefield. He tells her she should let go of the bow and embrace that future instead, but Nayun immediately explodes in anger, demanding to know who he thinks he is to decide that for her. Watching her reaction, Hajin quietly realizes she still has a long way to go. After carrying her all the way to the portal checkpoint, Hajin tells her she'll have to make her own way home from there. Nayun asks where he's going, but Hajin simply reminds her that dorm curfew is approaching before walking away, while Nayun desperately yells for him to wait and take her along. The following day, rumors about Sven's incident begin spreading throughout Cube. Meanwhile, Hajin heads toward room 303. Inside, Kim Suho greets him the moment he arrives. Also waiting inside are Kim Horak, Shin Jonghak, Yu Yona, and Lee Yonghan. Looking around the room, Hajin realizes nearly every important first-year student has already gathered. His mind flashes back to the phone call before the hunting trip, when he asked Suho what this was about. Suho explained that several students had gone missing, and Cube had selected them to investigate the incident. To avoid involving outside organizations, Cube assigned a handful of top-performing cadets to secretly track down the culprit themselves. While Suho was explaining everything, Nayun could be heard calling for him in the background. Asking her to wait a moment, Suho continued introducing the first-year representatives to Hajin. He also explained that Cube would continue its own investigation, believing the culprit was most likely another trainee, making it far easier to investigate from within. Hajin asked why he was being included, and Suho replied that he'd heard Hajin had exceptionally sharp instincts, and that Nayun herself had recommended him, leaving Hajin genuinely surprised. Back in the present, Suho thanks Hajin for accepting the invitation, while Hajin quietly thinks that the opportunity will earn him a huge amount of SP. Suho begins by explaining his theory that the demonic human who attacked Nayun isn't the same person responsible for the disappearances, but before he can continue, someone suddenly slams their foot onto the floor. It's Shin, who's clearly irritated that Suho keeps referring to her as Nayun, making them sound closer than they really are. Realizing his mistake, Suho immediately switches to calling her Chai Nayun. Returning to the discussion, Suho explains that Nayun is most likely still the enemy's target. Since demonic humans follow the will of the demon they contract with, if Sven failed, Another servant of that same demon will eventually come after her. With that in mind, Suho asks if anyone has any theories or suspects. Hajin already knows exactly who the culprit is, but accusing him without evidence would only make things worse, so he'd originally planned to wait until the culprit exposed himself. But unlike the original story, where 6 victims disappeared over 2 months, 3 students have already vanished in just 2 weeks. At this rate, even more people are bound to die. Hajin suddenly remembers the moment Nayeon thanked him. And for the first time, he realizes he no longer wants to sit back and watch people suffer just for the sake of preserving the story. With that decision made, Hajin slowly raises his hand, saying that he has someone in mind. He then names the leader of the academics club, Yoon Hyun, as his prime suspect. Suho immediately points out that Yoon Hyun has a solid alibi, since everyone close to the victims had already been investigated. Hajin counters by asking what if the victims willingly approached Yoon Hyun on their own, but Shin argues that simple mental magic could never manipulate someone that completely. Hajin calmly replies that would be true if it were ordinary mental magic, but before he can finish his explanation, someone cuts him off. It's Yuna, who says she finds it strange that Hajin is accusing someone with a confirmed alibi. Compared to Yoon Hyun, she believes Hajin himself is far more likely to be a demonic human. Hearing those words leaves Hajin completely stunned. Hajin recalls the days when he was writing this novel, thinking about how the protagonist needed someone who would always support him. So he created a chaebol heiress who would stand beside Kim Suho, someone with a sharp and vicious personality, but never truly malicious. And with that, he gave her the name Yuna. Back in the present, that very same Yuna is accusing Hajin of being a demonic human. Suho immediately comes to Hajin's defense, pointing out that Hajin has a solid alibi since portal records place him somewhere else during the incident. Yuna calmly replies that she's only making a guess, just like Hajin did. Portal records can easily be forged, making them far less reliable than Yoon Hyun's alibi. Hajin is left speechless by her argument, when suddenly someone behind him says they should just break his back first. It's Kim Horak, who claims that after a beating, Hajin will either reveal his true form or finally start talking. Shin and the class president both smile as they watch the situation unfold. Meanwhile, Hajin stands there with a blank expression, looking completely betrayed. After a brief silence, Hajin lets out a quiet laugh, making Horak ask what's so funny. Hajin calmly tells him to come at him, promising to put a hole through his forehead. Before either of them can move, Suho steps between them and tells both of them to calm down. Hajin tells everyone to simply ask Nayeon, since the two of them were together that day, but before he can finish explaining, a basketball suddenly comes flying toward him. Looking over, he sees Shin glaring at him as he angrily demands to know why Hajin keeps saying Nayeon's name. Hajin fires back that while he and Nayeon were risking their lives fighting a demonic human together, Shin was too busy playing childish games with his little group. Those words immediately enraged Shin, forcing the class president to step in and calm him down. Having said everything he wanted to, Hajin turns around and starts walking away. Suddenly, he slips, and Horak seizes the chance to attack him from behind. But Hajin instantly ducks, completely avoiding the surprise attack. Horak is stunned that Hajin dodged it so easily, while Hajin calmly draws his weapon, saying it looks like Horak won't understand without getting beaten first. Just as the two are about to clash, Suho steps in once again and stops them. He tells Horak that's enough before turning to Yona and suggesting she simply ask Nayeon herself if she's still suspicious. Without hesitation, Yona contacts Nayeon to ask about everything. Meanwhile, Hajin storms out of the room in frustration while Suho calls after him. On the other end, Nayeon firmly tells Yona that Hajin is not a demonic human, leaving Yona speechless without another reply. Outside the building, Hajin continues walking until he finally stops. He slowly crouches down, wearing an exhausted and miserable expression as he questions what he's even doing anymore. Not only was he thrown into the novel he wrote, but now he's constantly clashing with the very characters he once created with genuine care. Burying his face in his arms, he quietly admits that he's sick of everything. He misses his friends, misses his family, and just wants to return to the tiny home that only had a year left on its lease. He starts wondering how time is passing in his original world, and if it's moving normally, whether everyone already considers him a missing person. His thoughts drift to his parents, wondering if they're desperately searching for him or grieving over his disappearance. And for the first time, he seriously questions whether he'll ever make it back home. Just then, a notification suddenly appears, informing him that his perseverance has increased. Letting out a bitter laugh, Hajin mutters that the timing couldn't be worse. Still, he's grateful he invested in perseverance. The old him would have never had the courage to end his own life, but he probably would have already given up on ever returning home. Wiping away the tears from his face, Hajin slowly gets back to his feet. Then he quietly stands there, staring off into the distance. Back inside the building, the class president asks where Hajin went, and Suho simply replies that he's a difficult person to approach. Yona then asks Horak if he used his gift during the fight, immediately leaving him nervous and unable to answer. Realizing that even a mere sharpshooter managed to dodge an attack enhanced by a martial arts gift, Yona questions who the truly suspicious person is. Just then, her smartwatch receives a message from Yoon Hyun asking if she can meet him in the study room before tomorrow's club meeting. Yona casually replies, sure. Meanwhile, Yoon Hyun, covered in blood from head to toe, smiles as he reads her response. The next day, Hajin reflects on why people always say it's best to keep yourself busy when you're feeling down. Between training, hunting, and investing in stocks, exhaustion leaves him with little time to dwell on his thoughts. Even so, he can't help wondering what's going on with Suho and the class president, before deciding it's probably best not to get involved since he's doing fine on his own. Shaking his head, Hajin questions why he keeps getting tangled up with the characters he created, reminding himself that his real priority should be finding a way back home. Just then, Nayun walks into the classroom. Hajin asks if she's already well enough to return to school, and she replies that there wasn't anything for her to do at home anyway. Suho offers her a hand, but Nayun insists she can walk on her own, immediately making Shin furious that Suho even tried to help her. And seeing Shin get worked up over Nayun only ends up irritating Yona as well. Before things can escalate, the instructor walks in, tells everyone to take their seats, and announces that midterms are only a week away. He explains that the practical exams will begin immediately after the written tests, and they'll be evaluated in 2 separate categories. The first will be trainee duels, while the second will involve fighting phantom beasts summoned by a mage. Both sections will be significantly harder than their regular training, so everyone is expected to prepare seriously. Hajin isn't worried about the written exams, but the duel portion is another story. During the duels, every cadet receives 3 nomination tickets that let them choose who they want to fight. At first glance, it seems like top-ranked students could simply challenge weaker opponents for easy points, but Q prevents that through its compensation point system. For example, even if the first-ranked cadet defeats the lowest-ranked one, the points awarded are adjusted according to the gap in rank, and the higher-ranked student can even lose points. Of course, there are always people who ignore the system entirely and use their nomination tickets just to beat up someone they don't like. But that's not the only thing weighing on Hajin's mind. Rachel has been sitting unusually close to him lately. She barely says a word to him, yet she keeps lingering nearby despite always preferring to study alone in the back of the classroom. Hajin quietly wonders what she's up to, even suspecting that she might be peeking at his notes. Ignoring her, Hajin writes 2 names inside his notebook. Rachel curiously looks over, wondering what they are, while Hajin silently thinks that they're the names of his parents. Elsewhere, Yoon Hyun sends Yona a message saying he's already waiting in the study room. Not long after, Yona arrives. As she enters, Yoon Hyun greets her with his usual friendly smile. Looking around, she notices the other club members aren't there yet, but Hyun assures her they'll arrive soon. Her attention is then drawn to a scented candle on the table, and Hyun explains that it's meant to improve concentration since they'll be studying together. He casually mentions hearing that Yona joined the demonic human investigation team, adding that he's serving as one of the second-year representatives. He complains that the investigation hasn't made any progress before asking if Yona's team has found any suspects yet. She simply answers that they haven't, though she does mention that one person said something completely ridiculous. Curious, Hyun asks what that person said. As Yona slowly falls under his influence, feeling her mind becoming strangely calm, she answers that Hajin accused him of being a demonic human. She even mentions that Hajin seemed to believe he was using some kind of psychological magic, prompting Hyun to ask whether Hajin had any evidence. Just as she's about to reply that he didn't, something suddenly feels off. The single word evidence makes her pause, and while Hyun hurriedly tries correcting himself by saying he only meant to ask what Hajin was basing it on, Yona has already begun suspecting him. She immediately draws her whip and points it at him, saying that innocent people don't ask for evidence the moment they're accused of a crime. Tightening her grip on her weapon, she demands to know his true identity. In response, a dark aura slowly begins surrounding Hyun as he quietly tells her that her turn simply came earlier than expected. Sometime later, inside Cube's second-year dormitory, Yona slowly regains consciousness, only to find herself tied tightly to a chair. Looking around the room, She realizes she's inside the second-year dorm and immediately understands that Hyun was behind everything. At last, she realizes Hajin was telling the truth all along. Yoon Hyun really is the culprit behind the disappearances and a genuine demonic human. Forcing herself to stay calm, she desperately searches for some way to call for help. But despite her efforts, she struggles to do anything, silently praying that someone will come save her. Unfortunately, Hyun notices what she's trying to do and calmly tells her that she shouldn't. At that exact moment, Hajin's smartwatch suddenly begins flashing with a message from Yona. Reading the message, Hajin frowns in confusion, wondering what it's supposed to mean. Hyun takes Yoonha's smartwatch away and tells her that there is no way any of her friends would understand a gibberish text sent in the middle of the night. He notices that she messaged Hajin and wonders if this is the quick-witted guy who suspected him of being a demonic human, deciding that he will kill him later as well. Yoonha yells at him, asking if he seriously thinks he can get away after doing all this, since the search team has probably noticed already and is making a move. Hyun replies that it doesn't matter because he's leaving Cube as soon as this is over, then destroys Yoonha's smartwatch. Yoonha gets angry at this, and Hyun moves closer, telling her that he loves seeing that expression. However, Lady Lilith wants to see her face completely consumed by fear. Back with Hajin, he wonders if Yoonha accidentally sent him the message. He starts thinking about what it could mean, before realizing that the letters are the Korean initials for the word save. Hajin immediately takes out his book of truth and asks for Yoonha's location. But when he sees the answer, he is left completely shocked. Yoonha is being brainwashed, as a voice inside her head tells her that she has been lonely for long enough. The voice tries to make it seem as though it understands that feeling as well. But when it notices her expression, it is left surprised. It praises her strong willpower, unable to believe that she still hasn't been brainwashed, even though all she needs to do is let her mind go for a moment. It tells her not to be afraid, because Lady Lilith has given him permission to do this just for today. And she wants Yoonha as well. Yoonha continues struggling to free herself, but Hyun tells her it's useless, even if she manages to loosen her restraints. There is simply no way to escape in the face of Lady Lilith's overwhelming magical power. But before he can finish, Hyun is suddenly shot straight in the head. Blood spills everywhere, leaving Yoonha completely shocked. Hyun screams in pain, while Yoonha hears Hajin's voice telling her to look at how she ended up after doubting someone she should have trusted. Hyun angrily demands to know Hajin's identity, but Hajin tells him to forget about recovering, because the bullet was specially made and can only be removed through surgery. Hyun brings out his claws and attacks wildly, demanding to know where the hell Hajin is. He shatters every glass window and nearly hits Yoonha, but she manages to dodge the attack. Yoonha falls over, while Hajin mocks Hyun and tells him not to waste his strength, only making Hyun lash out more furiously and demand to know where he is. Hajin takes another shot at him, telling him that he is extremely far away right now. Hyun coughs up blood before collapsing to the ground. Only then do we see that Hajin is firing from a tree extremely far away, using the sniper rifle form of his Desert Eagle. With Hyun perfectly lined up in his sights, Hajin notes that long-range sniping really is the best. Hajin tells Yoonha that he'll be using all the bullets she gave him today, and he's sure she'll give him something even better if she has a conscience. Hyun tries to escape, but Hajin shoots him in the back. Hyun begins trembling as Hajin keeps his sights trained on him. Hajin lowers his weapon for a moment and tells Yoonha that he saw something he probably shouldn't have, then asks if she's all right, and she assures him that she is. Hajin tells her to take a nap because the search team will be there soon, and she quietly agrees. She then falls asleep, giving Hajin a heartfelt thank you. Fast forward, and Yoonha wakes up in the hospital. Suho is sitting beside her, and she asks what he is doing there. He asks if she is hurting anywhere, explaining that the doctor said there is nothing wrong with her body, but Yoonha suddenly freaks out, gets up, and asks Suho again what he is doing there. He explains that they have been taking turns nursing her, including him, Naeun, Jonghak, and Horak, which makes her ask why. Suho says it is because they are partially responsible for what happened, and as members of the same search team, they should have been more careful, but they were too focused on something else. He then apologizes to her for that. Yoonha tells Suho that he probably gets told by others all the time that he is stubborn, which leaves him confused. Looking at him, Yoonha realizes that she initially thought Suho was simply a talented guy, but perhaps she had misunderstood him. And that thought reminds her of her argument with Hajin. She asks Suho if that person came, but when he asks who she means, she suddenly turns away and says never mind. Yoonha then quietly stares up at the blue sky. We see that she messages Hajin, thanking him and promising that she will repay him. With that, Hajin gains a ton of SP, along with an increase in his Deadeye skill mastery. Hajin notes that this is the most SP he has ever gained from a single action, but considering he took care of one of the main arcs, an amazing reward was bound to come. It isn't much of a bonus when considering the investments he had to make for the snipe, but it's still more than enough since he managed to save Yunha. Suddenly, Park Soo-hyuk calls out to Hajin, saying he was surprised to receive such a sudden call and asking if something is wrong. Soo-hyuk quickly kneels in front of Hajin, assuming he was called there to cancel the contract, and begs him to reconsider, but Hajin assures him that it's nothing like that. Instead, he shows Soo-hyuk a briefcase and tells him that he wants to invest in SH Entertainment. Hearing this, Soo-hyuk is completely confused and too shocked to even think straight. The ginseng root he put up on Violet Banquet had returned a whopping 400 million won. He used 250 million of that to invest in Packhorse Masters, then put the remaining 150 million into SH Entertainment. After all, SH Entertainment's growth potential is just as certain as Packhorse Masters. Seeing Hajin's investment, Soo-hyuk is completely overwhelmed and says that he can't accept such a huge sum. But Hajin tells him to take it and use some of it to buy him a magic pouch and an HUV as well. He asks Soo-hyuk's age, and when he learns that he's 29, Hajin tells him to speak casually since he's older, but Soo-hyuk freaks out, saying he can't talk casually to an investor, so Hajin threatens to cancel the deal if he keeps acting like that. Hearing this, Soo-hyuk instantly switches to a much more casual tone. As they leave, Hajin asks him to stop by a convenience store first. Hajin starts scratching a lottery ticket, and when Soo-hyuk asks why he suddenly bought one, Hajin explains that he can't do it without a guardian. As the ticket is revealed, Soo-hyuk asks how much he won, and Hajin casually tells him it's 20 million won. Hearing that, Soo-hyuk completely freaks out. Hajin gives that money to Soo-hyuk as well, telling him to invest it and send him an edited copy of the contract. Soo-hyuk tightly tucks the ticket away, and when Hajin asks what he's doing, he explains that someone might steal it. Now, that evening, we move to an abandoned warehouse. A little kid rises from what appears to be a shadow. He tells his boss that they have started making their move. Packhorse Masters has been listed, and he asks what they should do next. She tells him that they will simply take the item and leave the rest. But the kid points out that something strange is happening, because someone has been buying Packhorse Masters stock aggressively. They started with 3 million, then 10 million, and suddenly invested 250 million, making him wonder if that's too much money to put into a guild that doesn't even have a guild page for good fortune. The boss tells him to forget about it and focus on their objective, then asks if there is anything else to report, and he mentions that a few interesting pages have opened on Violet Banquet and asks if she wants to take a look. There is a relic search party, Jonggak Bosentang, the Truth Agency, and his instincts tell him that the Truth Agency smells fishy. He asks if he should put in a request there, since they might be able to find that person for them, but she gets angry and calls out his name, Druin. Druin gets scared and insists that he was only joking, then adds that Cube's midterms are also starting tomorrow. The hot topics there are the number 1 and 2 ranked students, Kim Soo-ho and Shin Jong-hak, and a few members are planning to infiltrate, so he asks his boss if she is going to participate as well. She simply replies that she will. And we finally get a full look at our new mommy waifu. She hopes that she will find someone interesting and useful there. Fast forward, and as the days fly by, the practical portion of midterms finally begins. We see a happy and excited Hazuki meeting her parents. During practical week, Cube opens its doors to hero employment agencies, guilds, the association, and the trainees' families, turning the place into a huge festival packed with people from all over the world. Reporters cover the festival, while various guilds prepare to send offers to the top trainees. Meanwhile, Hajin uses a drone and notes that there isn't much action yet. So, he decides to wait a little longer. We also learn that Soo-hyuk provided him with these drones, and since Hajin has set them up all around Cube, the chances of detecting intruders have increased. Suddenly, Hajin bumps shoulders with someone and turns around to apologize. And the person he bumped into is none other than the boss of the Chameleon Troupe. Hajin is completely shocked, having almost forgotten about her. He remembers that she is also supposed to come for the practical exam. But after staring at her for a little too long, he realizes that he has made a mistake by locking eyes with her. He quickly tries to think of something to say so he won't look suspicious. And the first thing that comes to mind is to call her pretty. This leaves both of them completely speechless, staring at each other with deadpan expressions. She simply ignores the comment and walks away. She contacts Druin, who asks what happened, and she tells him about the person she passed earlier, explaining that he saw through the perception-blocking item. Because of that, she orders Druin to investigate Hajin. Hajin remembers that the heroes aren't the only ones here scouting trainees, because the Chameleon Troupe is also at Cube. Their objective is to recruit either Kim Soo-ho or Shin Jong-hak, But Suho doesn't fit their beliefs, so he is disqualified, leaving Shin Jonghak as their target, just as the story is supposed to go. Their infiltration itself shouldn't cause much trouble, but if the story changes and they end up fighting the heroes guarding the exam site, it won't end with just 1 or 2 people getting killed. Suddenly, someone shouts that there is nothing at all, making everyone turn their attention toward him. We see him explaining that he doesn't see anyone suspicious, while the girl tells him to stop goofing around and search properly, since it would be a serious problem if someone managed to get past cube security during practical week. He replies that they can simply eliminate anyone who becomes a problem, and we learn that they are both high-grade heroes. Oh Young-hyuk, rank 1737, a 6th-grade hero, and Seo Yangji, rank 2000, a 7th-grade hero. As they move around and argue, with Young-hyuk even telling her to go eat pizza with him, a mysterious person can be seen strolling behind them. He comments on Hajin, surprised that he managed to see through the perception-blocking feature of Siren's necklace and spot their boss. This finally gets him interested, because everyone here seems like a weakling, and he's getting so bored that he feels like he could die from it. He asks Drun what kind of guy Hajin is, saying that he'd like to go first and brawl with him, while Drun thinks he's nothing but a muscle brain. Drun tells him to stay put, explaining that they can confirm whether Hajin has any promise without doing anything yet, because they're about to start the duels. At the arena, the announcer declares that the first match is about to begin, and that it is a duel where a nomination ticket was used. We see Hajin walking into the arena when someone suddenly calls out to him. It's Yunha, who asks if Hajin is heading to the arena. He replies that he's first up, and hearing this, Yunha calls over her assistant. The assistant gives Hajin 100 top-grade bullets. He can't use them during the test, but he can use them however he wants afterward, and she tells him to let her know if he needs more. She also makes it clear that she isn't trying to settle the debt for saving her life with something like this. Instead, she tells him to think of it as a gift. She also reveals that she hasn't told anyone about Hajin supporting them during the demonic human incident, despite them repeatedly asking, and Hajin asks her to keep hiding it. After all, things would get complicated if they found out that he was the one who shot Yunhyun. Yunha says she understands that Hajin is hiding his strength for some reason, but passing the practical exam like that will be difficult, which leaves Hajin confused. She then asks if he even knows who he's up against. We switch to the waiting room, where someone is busy exercising. And it's Kim Horak, who declares that he will make sure to crush Hajin. Back with the chameleon troop, Drun tells his captain that he couldn't find anything suspicious. Hajin grew up in an orphanage with no parents or relatives, and at the age of 6, he was admitted into the military academy after they noticed something special when inspecting the orphanage. He was only a low intermediate rank student, never did anything remarkable enough to attract special attention, and eventually entered Cube. He also has a $300 million debt, and that's pretty much everything there is to know about him. Hearing this, she wonders how Hajin could possibly see through a perception-blocking item and notice her. Drun admits that he doesn't know either, just as the big guy arrives from the bushes and finds his captain. He tells her that it's been a while, and she introduces him as Chiak Yongyang. She tells him that he's late and asks if he was wandering around somewhere else, but he explains that he simply followed the instructions to search for talents and came here. She asks if he found anyone, and he replies that they are all weaklings who would get destroyed by a flick to the head. Drun says that's expected, but asks if there was any cadet who left an impression, and Yongyang replies that he only checked the second-year first-grade students and didn't find anyone. Drun informs him that this year's first-year students are supposed to be exceptional, so he should check them out instead, especially since a first-year named Kim Hajin is about to start his battle. Hearing that name, Yongyang remembers that Hajin is the guy who saw their captain through the perception-blocking item. Now, at the Practical Cube arena for the midterms, we see the two heroes eating pizza while watching the battles, and once again, they start arguing. Young-hyuk tells Yangji that he has gotten much better and that his son likes it, which makes her smile and ask if that's really the case. Suddenly, she notices Yongyang sitting across from them and wonders what he's doing there. After all, he's been staring in their direction with a smile on his face. Young-hyuk assumes that perhaps he's a fan of theirs. As Horak enters the arena, Young-hyuk notes that the match is about to start, adding that Horak might not be in the top 6, but he's still pretty decent. Yangji notes that his opponent is rank 934, Kim Hajin. She wonders if this is really the matchup, and Young-hyuk asks if she read the notes. Hajin tells Horak that he looks a little fierce and asks him to take it easy, which immediately pisses him off. Horak explains that his specialty is using the mana within his body to create an invisible layer of enhanced protection energy. Training ammunition can't do anything to him, and his opponents should be grateful if they don't end up broken in two, so Hajin absolutely cannot let him get close. The announcer declares that the first match is about to begin, and Horak immediately charges at Hajin. As Horak rushes toward him, Hajin activates bullet time. He uses bullet time to move out of the way, having also increased the amount of time he can maintain it to a full minute. Hajin notes that he can keep up with Horak's movements, but Horak suddenly punches the ground and sends him flying into the air, making Hajin wonder if he's some kind of tank. Horak continues chasing Hajin around the arena, and while running, Hajin points his weapon at him. Hajin fires, and Horak smirks, thinking that if Hajin really believes his enhanced protection energy is that weak. He claims he can easily deflect a bullet like that, but the moment he punches toward it, the bullet slams heavily into his shoulder. Horak immediately becomes nervous, while everyone else is left shocked as well. They're stunned by the fact that the bullet actually pierced through his enhanced protection energy. Everyone in the stands starts wondering who Hajin is and how he managed to pierce enhanced protection energy with a mere bullet, because that shouldn't be possible. Hearing the crowd's reaction, Horak gets even more agitated, but Hajin fires again, forcing him to defend himself. Hajin thinks that if Horak believed he could simply deflect these bullets, then that's unfortunate for him, because they have been infused with the mana of stigma. They also possess anti-demon properties, and seeing this, the crowd starts cheering for Hajin. Enraged, Horak slams the ground and lifts up the entire arena. But Hajin manages to dodge the attack and jumps backward. Suddenly, Hajin throws a knife at him while telling him to be careful, and Horak dodges it, wondering if there's some kind of device hidden inside. But Hajin points his weapon at him and fires, revealing that the knife was nothing more than a fake. Horak falls to the ground, and Hajin slowly approaches him with his weapon aimed directly at him. Everyone is left stunned as Hajin prepares to pull the trigger. Horak grows nervous at the thought of losing, while everyone watches in anticipation and shock. Young-hyuk wonders if Hajin has run out of bullets, while Sung-ji points out that Horak looks exhausted as well. We see Horak struggling to stand as Hajin stares at him with a blank expression. Suddenly, Hajin smiles, drops his weapon, and surrenders. Everyone is left completely shocked and speechless by his decision. The announcer declares the duel over and announces Kim Horak as the winner, which leaves Horak incredibly pissed at Hajin for surrendering like that. Everyone starts commenting on how Horak is fine even after apparently being hit by a real bullet, wondering if it's because he is a fighter. Young-hyuk asks Sung-ji for her impression of the match. She says Kim Hajin did well, while Kim Horak was too hasty. He should have slowly dominated Hajin in close combat instead of rushing in with enhanced protection energy, since it comes with a heavy cost, but he tried to do too much too quickly and ended up getting embarrassed for no reason. Either way, she finds Hajin far more interesting. His firing speed is unimaginable, and his dynamic visual acuity allows him to keep track of a martial artist's movements. But when Horak started slowing down, Kim Hajin also slowed down, making her wonder if he has some kind of gift that enhances his physical abilities. And on top of that, he was using bullets infused with mana. Young-hyuk asks if she's saying that the density of his compressed magic bullets was strong enough to break through enhanced protection energy, despite him only being a cadet. She replies that they still don't know what kind of gift Cadet Kim Hajin possesses, but his potential could very well be the greatest of all time, as everyone around them remains shocked by the battle and numerous guilds and associations start contacting their presidents about it. Because of this, Sung-ji decides to remember his name, while Young-hyuk points out that the next duel is about to begin as well. Switching over to Young-yong, he says that he doesn't like Kim Hajin. To him, Hajin is just a small guy who shoots from a distance, so he wonders why their captain told him to check Hajin out, and Drun asks if he didn't see it himself, considering Hajin possesses the power of demon slaying. Young-yong replies that it has nothing to do with being strong, and Drun realizes that he simply dislikes Hajin because he's a ranged fighter, which Young-yong chuckles and agrees with. Fatal effort and fatal murderous intent, the will to pierce death into another person's heart, are what you need to have a real duel. Drun tells him to go look for cadets with some fatal whatever, then asks if he saw Suho or Jonghak, and Young-yong replies that both of them look pretty good. Shin Jonghak's destructive style, immediately aiming for his enemy's vitals without any information, is impressive. He also likes how Jonghak caused a ruckus for the cowards who only know how to defend, and Drun replies that if Young-yong likes him, then he can't expect much from his personality. As for Kim Suho, Young-yong calls him unique, making Drun ask what he means by that. Young-yong explains that Suho is exactly as they heard, using a sword dance style of swordsmanship, and it's obvious that he has trained and refined those movements for a very long time. But somehow, it feels like he's hiding his true colors. Drun asks if that means Cube's number 1 is different, but Young-yong says he doesn't know, because neither of them is at a level where he wants to fight them immediately. Drun then asks what about Kim Hajin, and Yoongyang gets pissed, asking if he's really including that guy as well. Drun says of course, since the power of demon slaying is exactly what their captain is looking for, but Yoongyang once again insists that he doesn't like him. Suddenly, a security guard appears from behind the bushes and asks if anyone is there. He tells Yoongyang to leave immediately because the forest is off limits, which pisses him off. The guard repeats that he needs to leave, and Yoongyang calls the whole thing annoying. As the guard gets closer, Yoongyang flicks him on the forehead. The impact makes a loud sound and kills him. Drun asks if he broke him, and Yoongyang casually replies that he did. Drun tells him that he's dead to the captain now, but Yoongyang simply tells him to keep it a secret. Now, that evening, we see their captain standing on top of a building and looking over the city. We get a flashback to a heavy rainy day at someone's grave, where someone vows to find the traitor no matter what. It's the captain, who promises to find them and get her revenge as she cries. Back in the present, she grips the railing and contacts Drun. She orders him to investigate Kim Suho, Shin Jong-hak, and Kim Ha-jin, then asks for the order of priority, and Drun explains that the power of demon slaying can break demonic bodies, so Kim Ha-jin should be their highest priority. Drun asks if that's really okay since they barely have any information about him, but she replies that it doesn't matter. After all, she will be meeting him personally tomorrow. Now fast forward to the second day of the midterms at the first arena. People in the stands notice scouts from the Blade Guild and Holy Grace of God Guild as well. The audience turnout is also completely different from the first day, because today's duels are much bigger. Rank 1, Kim Suho, faces Rank 8, Yo-hei, while Rank 3, Rachel, faces Rank 4, Chai Naeun. Everyone is excited for these cube rankers to clash, with the first match being Naeun versus Rachel. Ha-jin thanks the extras for the explanation. And in today's match, Naeun gets defeated by Rachel, since it's impossible to beat Rachel with a bow that isn't even a vocational gift. Finally, the announcer announces the start of the first year's 8th match. Naeun confidently tells Rachel that they'll be exchanging ranks today as she points her bow toward the sky. She fires an arrow into the sky, creating a volley of arrows that comes raining down on Rachel. But Rachel dodges most of them and deflects one that comes straight toward her. Naeun is surprised to see her attack completely shut down, while Rachel immediately rushes toward her. Meanwhile, in the stands, we see the boss approaching Ha-jin. She sits down beside him, and the two stare at each other for a moment. She is a black-level criminal wanted by the Hero Association, the captain of the infamous Chameleon Troupe, and a powerful individual who has hidden herself behind countless names and identities. And in this world, Ha-jin is the only person who knows her real name. But suddenly, someone accidentally spills a soda can on her, splashing her in the process. Ha-jin gets scared and starts sweating. We then see the result of Rachel and Naeun's match. The boss cleans herself with a handkerchief Ha-jin gives her and thanks him for it. She tells Ha-jin that she watched his duel with Kim Horak. She shows him her card, explaining that she's this type of person, and asks if the talent he showed in the duel was his gift, leaving Ha-jin surprised by her contact information. He notices that it's not her real name, probably one of her countless identities, and asks if she came from a guild, pointing out that contacting cadets this early is illegal. She tries to take it back, but Ha-jin holds on to it, making it clear that he isn't saying he won't accept it. She tells Ha-jin that she can't give him any details yet, but it won't be anything bad for him, before leaving and telling him to contact her sometime. Ha-jin thinks there shouldn't be any reason for the captain to be looking for him right now and wonders why she came to him. Meanwhile, Kim Suho's match also concludes with him as the winner. At the end of the day, everyone starts talking about the duels, especially how Naeun versus Rachel marks the first time a Korean prospect has lost to a foreigner. Ha-jin calls back his drone and wonders if it picked up anything during its surveillance, deciding to check it once he gets back to the dorms. Suddenly, he hears the sound of someone sobbing. And it's Naeun, who is crying while hiding in a bush. Ha-jin remembers this event from the story, where Suho comforts Naeun because she's crying over her defeat, and from this event, Naeun starts developing feelings for Kim Suho. Telling her to work harder or saying they should work hard together would be meaningless to Naeun right now. Sometimes, you need to give up instead of working harder, but Kim Suho doesn't believe in giving up, and he would never ask anyone else to give up either. Naeun probably won't give up on her bow because of Kim Suho. Suddenly, Ha-jin gets an idea, and we see Naeun receive a message on her smartwatch. It's from Ha-jin, telling her that he watched her duel, making Naeun wonder what the hell this bitch wants. She is surprised by his next messages, where he tells her that a sword suits her better than a bow, just like he said before. He even recommends that she change courses. Seeing this, Naeun is left with a completely deadpan expression. We see Suho coming out of the arena and finding Naeun, asking where she went while looking into the bushes and telling her that he's been searching for her for a while. But Naeun is absolutely pissed off. She screams that she's going to kill Hajin, and with that, the first semester midterm's practical subject, duel, comes to an end. Back in the dorms, Hajin watches the footage of Young Yun attacking the guard, calling the whole thing brutal. He starts wondering if Young Yun is part of the chameleon troupe as well. There are people in this world capable of killing without hesitation, killing simply because they feel like it, and doing it purely for their own pleasure. And with science and magic making such things even easier, there are also demi-humans lurking behind the scenes who have nothing to do with laws or rules. They are still human, yet they reject the authority of heroes, and they cannot be called mere lawbreakers because they possess transcendental strength just like heroes do. They are villains. Hajin realizes he cannot simply focus on the villains from the existing novel, because according to the co-author, the altered novel gives them no idea when or what kind of villain might appear. Now, at the midterm's Practical Monster Battle Examination Center, one of the instructors introduces herself as Jin Juhua, the mage in charge of supervising the exam, before explaining how the test will work. This is where the cadets will participate in the monster battle, fighting monsters summoned by a mage. The test is far more dangerous than any training they have done so far, because the summoned monsters have the same attack tendencies as real monsters and will not disappear immediately, even if the mage cancels the summon. Their lives could even be in danger if they refuse to yield out of pride, so she advises them to surrender quickly if the test becomes too difficult. Their evaluation will be based on how long they last and how calmly they react, and with that, she wishes everyone luck. She first calls 4 people from Team 1 to step into the exam hall. As Team 1 enters, the instructor tells everyone to observe them quietly. If it isn't their turn, they are supposed to analyze the other cadets' battles, consider how they fought the monsters, and think about whether they could have done better or found a better approach, which they can then discuss. But just as she is about to start the battle, she hears some strange noises. Hearing them, she tells everyone to turn off their smartwatches and reminds them that their reports will also affect the writing test, so they need to pay attention when writing them. With that, she finally begins the exam. The mage summons the first monster for Team 1, Cadet Hazuki, and it is an advanced ghoul. The ghoul attacks Hazuki, and she can barely defend herself against it. The other students observing the battle immediately start taking notes. Next is Team 2, Cadet Li Yonghan, who faces a huge serpent and uses magic liberation to land a clean strike. After that comes a rain of arrows from Naeun, who also finishes her exam with ease. Other cadets, including Yu Yun Ha, quickly finish their exams as well. Finally, it is Team 10's turn, with Cadet Kim Hajin facing the summoned monster, a Crom Wolf. Hajin quickly shoots the monster before hiding behind a rock for cover. He figures that if things continue like this, the exam should end without any problems. But suddenly, everyone hears a loud noise and starts wondering what it is. Hajin also wonders what the hell is happening this time. Meanwhile, Young Hyuk is on patrol and asks if something happened in the exam hall after hearing the noise. Sung Ji gets annoyed and tells him to focus on guarding the area, reminding him that one of the security troopers patrolling Cube was killed yesterday. They are in a state of extreme emergency, so she tells him to stay focused. Young Hyuk agrees and asks if they have located the epicenter of the tremor, but she says they only suspect it is somewhere on the ocean floor in his direction and don't know the exact location yet, leaving Young Hyuk hoping it isn't anything serious. Suddenly, he hears footsteps in the bushes and quickly turns around. It turns out to be Young Yun, who notices Young Hyuk and says that there is someone here. Young Hyuk tells him that the area is off limits and asks if he lost his way, but Young Yun asks why he is here, to which Young Hyuk replies that he isn't an outsider. Young Yun starts preparing for battle, telling him that enough talking and that he should stop getting in his way. He warns Young Hyuk to get lost if he doesn't want to get beaten up. Suddenly, both of them feel a massive tremor as the water around them begins to rise. A gigantic monster emerges from a water tornado, leaving both of them wondering what the hell it is. Back at the exam center, an announcement orders every cadet to evacuate the building, as the exam has been stopped because of something happening outside. The instructor also tells Hajin to stop his test and evacuate. Hajin can only wonder what the hell is going on. And outside the building, a mysterious figure stands watching the exam center. Back at the training center, Hajin notices that the summons aren't being cancelled. He tries calling out to someone upstairs, but no one answers, making him realize that something is wrong and wonder if there are demonic humans among the dispatched mages. But it can't just be Juhua, since the story change alert hasn't appeared, and there were no detected changes among the people inside this exam building. Which means there can only be one possibility, as Hajin finally realizes what's happening. We then see someone arrive and meet Rachel, greeting her after such a long time. Rachel is surprised to see him, and Hajin realizes this is definitely possible, since there are countless extras like Kim Chundong who were never even mentioned in the novel. The character introduces himself as Sir Lancaster, and Hajin immediately realizes that this is a story he knows nothing about. Rachel asks Lancaster where he has been since the London incident 5 years ago. She also can't help but notice his appearance. Seeing him like this, Rachel realizes that he has sold his soul. She asks why someone like him, a former Imperial captain, would do such a thing, but Lancaster tells her that she has misunderstood. He didn't sell his soul. A new lord simply took over the soul of a man who had been betrayed by the very country he devoted his entire life to. Hearing this, Rachel draws her sword and tells him there is no point in talking any further, as she is going to apprehend him. Rachel immediately leaps toward him to attack, but her sword passes straight through his body, leaving her stunned. Lancaster explains that unfortunately, his real body isn't here, and the figure standing before her is merely an avatar he is using to have some fun. With the chaos outside and the invasion of monsters, including the Amugi, the exam building has fallen into complete pandemonium, so no one will care about this place, and no one will be able to come to Rachel's aid. He asks if this isn't quite different from the usual United Kingdom, where the imperial family is treated as the highest protection priority while tens or even hundreds of others can die without anyone paying attention. We then see a flashback of Lancaster holding someone in his arms and crying, as he curses the place as darned. Hearing something nearby, Lancaster says that he would love to talk with her more, but unfortunately, his time is up. He leaves while bidding Rachel farewell, but she desperately shouts his name, trying to stop him. Then, an assassin suddenly emerges from the shadows. It immediately attacks Rachel, who barely manages to defend herself. She quickly realizes that his attacks are incredibly powerful as the relentless flurry keeps forcing her backward. Unable to block his attacks, Rachel starts taking damage across her body and realizes she can't keep fighting him head-on, so she has to take a risk and aim for an opening. But the assassin strikes her hand, sending her sword flying from her grasp. Rachel is left defenseless on the ground, unable to fight back. She quickly uses a mana thread to try pulling her sword back toward her. Just as the assassin is about to strike, her sword suddenly comes flying back toward him. But before anything can happen, the wall behind them suddenly breaks apart, leaving Rachel stunned. And from the opening, Hajin appears as the assassin turns to look at him. The assassin immediately rushes toward Hajin to attack. But Hajin transforms his Desert Eagle into a shotgun and fires directly at the assassin. After the shot, the assassin completely disappears. Hajin wonders if it really ended in a single shot, though considering this attack consumes 250 SP, that is hardly surprising. Seeing him, Rachel realizes that he is someone from her class. Hajin walks over and offers her his hand, asking if she is alright. Though she obviously doesn't look alright, so Hajin offers her some bandages. As he cleans up the blood and applies the bandages, he notes that if he had arrived even a little later, she might never have been able to wield a sword again. Then, seeing all the blood, Hajin suddenly realizes something. He unexpectedly obtained the blood of a cube ranker. Rachel thanks him for helping her, and Hajin tells her not to worry about it. Suddenly, the instructor arrives and asks the two of them if they are injured anywhere. She tells them that help is on the way and that they will be rescued immediately. One of her assistants then informs the head mage that 2 cadets in the neighboring exam hall are severely injured, prompting her to wonder who on earth could have done this. Back with Young Hyuk, Song Ji comes running toward him as he sits by the ocean. She asks what happened after hearing that an Amugi appeared, and Young Hyuk points out that she took quite a while to get here, since it has already been chased away. She asks if he was the one who drove it away, but Young Hyuk explains that an intruder was responsible. He doesn't know who stabbed the Amugi, but the monster became furious, and that intruder was still able to use brute force to drive it away. Whoever he was definitely incredibly strong. Song Ji says she can't believe it, but Young Hyuk admits that he doesn't believe it either. Still, the intruder is highly likely to be the suspect in the police station murder, so they should put out a search for him. With an unknown intruder appearing on top of a high-ranking monster, it seems the midterms are a complete bust this year. This time, it will be difficult for the Cube executives to avoid getting reprimanded over the incident. To sum things up, the Cube monster incident from yesterday becomes a well-known issue around the world, and the midterms are postponed. Since a huge amount of manpower is needed to explain the situation to the public and repair the damage, both the tests and classes are cancelled. As a result, the cadets get to enjoy an unprecedented 10-day holiday. Seeing how excited they are, the instructor scolds them for acting like this when several cadets were injured, telling them to stop thinking about unnecessary things and return to their dorms. Back in his room, Hajin looks at his laptop and finally sees the story change message appear. It's about Alex Lancaster, whom Hajin remembers as one of the UK-related characters he created with the objective of conquering the United Kingdom. Hajin realizes that a pretty tough villain has become even stronger than he was in the original story and appeared much sooner as well, making him regret not creating more kind-hearted characters if he had known this would happen. Still, it's not necessarily all bad, since he did manage to obtain Rachel's blood. Suddenly, someone smacks him on the head with their elbow. And it's Naeun, who looks absolutely pissed at Hajin. She makes fun of him and asks what he's looking at, which only pisses him off. The president notes that they're fighting again, but Suho says that they actually look friendlier than before. Later, Naeun heads back to her dorm and calls Hajin a loser for picking a fight when he wasn't even going to do anything. Suddenly, a notification appears on her smartwatch. It's the report from the previous test. She opens it to see what's inside and notices that Suho has written a report as well. Suho's report praises her, saying that it looked like she had been worried about many things, and that several internal and external factors had chipped away at her self-confidence. However, he says she is an exceptionally talented cadet, an unwavering killer with the Qianlima as her opponent, and that through hard work and exceptional talent, she was able to achieve a perfect result. Someone else might think she lacks talent, but what she truly lacks isn't talent, but confidence in herself. If she continues moving forward while believing in herself like she did today, he is sure she can become the greatest hero. Sincerely, from Appraisal Cadet, Kim Suho. Seeing his message, Naeun calls it embarrassing and starts blushing, while thinking that no matter what anyone says, she will continue using a bow. She then receives another appraisal, this time from an anonymous person, and although she doesn't know who wrote it, the appraisal is incredibly long, making her excited to read it. But the moment she starts reading, her expression becomes more and more pissed off. Suddenly, she screams so loudly that it can be heard outside her dorm, startling Hazuki. Naeun shouts that she will never forgive whoever wrote this shit. Back in Hajin's dorm room, he feeds the blood he obtained from Rachel to the seed. The seed immediately absorbs the blood, leaving Hajin surprised that it ate it just like that. This is the Evangel's seed that he obtained from Mount Gari, and if blood is fed to it, Evangel the witch will eventually be born from it. Since this blood came from Rachel, a kind person, Hajin hopes nothing like a villain will emerge, and he starts caressing the seed while telling it to grow up quickly and help him out. Suddenly, his wrist starts glowing, making Hajin panic. He realizes that a second stigma is being inscribed onto his body, causing him to scream in agony. The next morning, Hajin is sitting in a car heading somewhere in the city. Suhyuk asks what's wrong, but Hajin tells him it's nothing, and that he's just a little tired today. More importantly, Hajin asks whether the business is going well, and Suhyuk explains that having an SUV makes sales much easier, bringing in more customers and making him far more comfortable than when he had to walk around the field. He even starts crying as he thanks Hajin, so Hajin quickly thinks of changing the subject. When they arrive, they notice a large crowd gathered at the entrance and wonder if they're from a guild. The people nearby are surprised to see such a group as well, and it turns out they're members of the Essence of the Straight Guild. Hajin also notices Yunha and wonders if she's here to do some field exploration with her guild members. As Yunha turns around, she notices Hajin as well. She walks over, knocks on his window, and asks what he's doing here in the field. Hajin simply replies that he's here to earn some money. She asks if he's alone, and he explains that he's with his agent, Park Suhyuk, who is surprised to learn that Hajin is affiliated with the Essence of the Straight. Yunha looks Suhyuk over, making Hajin think that Yunha and Suhyuk are quite a strange combination. Originally, Suhyuk was supposed to become Suho's agent, and after Yunha found out that Suho had signed a contract with him, she decided to invest a huge amount of money into SH Entertainment. That investment became a huge success, leading both Yunha and Park Suhyuk down the road to success, at least in the novel. But the problem is whether Yunha will still invest in SH Entertainment when it doesn't have Kim Suho. In the worst-case scenario, Hajin might end up blocking Park Suhyuk's bright future. Yunha suddenly says she understands and gets into the car with Hajin, saying that if he's here to hunt, she'll accompany him. She asks Hajin if that's okay with him, but he's left completely shocked. Later, as the car enters the field, the two of them sit silently inside. Hajin wonders what Yunha is thinking when she suddenly calls out to him. She asks if he has any plans for the future, making Hajin wonder why she's suddenly bringing this up. She clarifies that she's asking what he intends to do after the graduation ceremony, but Hajin wonders why he should think about that when graduation is still so far away. Yunha points out that the midterms are already over and they won't even be at Cube during their third year because of their apprenticeships, making Hajin realize that they'll probably be extremely busy in their third year as cleanup heroes or something. So, if he doesn't have any specific plans, Yunha asks him to join the Essence of the Straight with her. She explains that although they're constantly stuck in second place because of holy grace of God, if she becomes captain, she's going to make the essence of the strait the best guild in the country. She even promises to support him with tons of high-ranking weapons and named artifacts. She asks if that isn't an incredibly attractive offer for a cadet like him. Hajin points out that recruiting cadets before graduation is illegal and would cost her a 5 billion fine, but Yunha simply says that amount is nothing to her. Just as she's telling him to think carefully about it, Soo-hyuk suddenly stops the car, causing her face to smash into the seat in front of her. She angrily asks why he stopped the car like that. Soo-hyuk simply tells her that they've arrived at the monster point. Yunha wonders how a normal agent knows about a monster point, and Soo-hyuk explains that April is when the monsters in the field start getting especially aggressive. There are many smaller monsters that get driven into this area, and while there are a few other locations like this, those places are too crowded because they're more famous. This one was also chosen with Hajin's sniping ability in mind. Soo-hyuk has already explored the area himself and gathered the information personally, so it can be trusted. Hearing all this surprises Yunha, while Hajin comments on how capable his agent is. Hajin gets out, telling Soo-hyuk that he'll be back after doing some hunting, and Soo-hyuk asks Yunha what she's going to do. She replies that her guild members will be arriving soon. Soo-hyuk gets nervous around her, but then Yunha suddenly taps on his window. She asks Soo-hyuk to give her his name card.